Welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, your home for the season finale of the GT4 prototype and Formula Winter Series. The Gedlich Racing Winter Series package comes to its conclusion here at what is a rather soaking Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for this day's action. It's been sunny and dry up until this point. Unfortunately, the weather has turned against us on Winter Series Saturday. We have 4 championships then to determine. All 4 of the championships come into this weekend, still undecided, and we will talk you through the various permutations as the day goes on. However, for now, we thank you very much for joining us. Myself, Adam Weller, in the commentary box, joined by Andy McEwen up on the podiums for the first time, and also by down in the pit lane, Izzy Browning as well. So a great team bringing you the season finale for this weekend at a fabulous venue. 4.657 kilometers and 14 corners at this circuit, which has been a host of Formula One racing for over 30 years. Of course, also a staple on the World Motorcycle Grand Prix stage as well. It is a circuit that recently gained its last sector back. We're back to a fast final sector, of course, here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and that could be one of the more tricky sections of the circuit in these wet conditions. You can see there that we're expecting a rather pessimistic forecast for the entirety of the day. I've heard more positive things about Sunday, but certainly the drivers are going to have to fight against the elements on this day. And it is a day where championships are very much on the line and in the balance. The GT4 Winter Series, which we have coming out onto the circuit as we speak, they will be the first ones out there today. We have a slightly amended timetable as well. They've pushed everything a little bit forward. I believe that's largely to make sure we've got time to deal with any mishap that may happen over the course of the rest of the day. The GT4s will be followed by the Formulas, the GT Winter Series. All of those races are half-hour affairs, and then we'll end the day on this Winter Series Saturday with the prototype Winter Series. And in 3 of the championships, we could see champions today. GT4 Winter Series, Forsetti Motorsports, Jamie Day and Mikey Porter could win the overall championship in this race, depending on how their performance is relative to Schnitzelhelm Racing's Joel Mesh, and also the Elite Motorsport McLaren of Tom Leben and Zach Meeken that you see just coming out behind the Forsetti car at the moment. It is that Forsetti Motorsport number 19 Aston Martin that is the potential championship favourite, well, certainly the championship favourite, but could be champion in a matter of about 45 minutes from now. It will be a 58-point advantage that Forsetti Motorsport have coming into this race. Mikey, though, has some work to do from a little bit further back on the grid. And the GT Winter Series Championship feels almost certain to go to the team of Jamo Hartling and Kenneth Heyer in the first race of this weekend. Prototypes is a little more up for debate, but certainly there is a strong favourite in Danny Sufi, who, if he outscores his closest competition in this race, will win the championship before we even get into Winter Series Sunday. So championships on the line, championships more than likely to be decided at least one series over the course of this Saturday broadcast. And what a way to get it started as well with the GT4 Winter Series, which has historically been one of the most exciting categories that we bring you each and every weekend. We've got a slightly expanded entry list as well. For the first time, Wimmerwerk Motorsport have brought along 2 cars. We've also got WNS Motorsport back as well. Very, very strong lineup there. Josef Knopp, who took a win in Jerez overall in the Pro-Am class car, will be joined by Max Kronberg, who is a very, very competent bronze driver as well. The race, incidentally, will be getting started under safety car for this one. So the race will be 30 minutes in duration, and once they are rolling off the grid, that will be the start of the race. The safety car will then be out for at least 2 laps. So the Race will begin under safety car, but we do expect this to be a very thrilling race nonetheless. We can now, though, focus in on the GT4 Winter Series, our first race of the weekend.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the grid for the first time this weekend. It's a very damp grid, as you can probably see, but we have actually got some fans with us. So hello to everyone up in the grandstands. You are very committed for coming down. We're about to have the first race of the day. As Adam has already said, it's the GT4 Winter Series to begin, and we are just waiting for our pole sitters to come in now. So we've got Zach Meakin in the Elite McLaren on pole position, and as Adam has already said, we are potentially going to have a champion this race. So we'll be watching out for those Forsetti boys, but they are starting further back in the field. They are starting on the third row. So I'm going to pop round and see if we can speak to a pole sitter. Just see if we can get the door open. Are we all right to get the door open? Just quickly? No? Okay, we're going to keep the door down, so we might not be able to speak to some drivers. I can pop in, though. Zach, hello. Thank you for opening the little window for us. This is a pretty good place for you to start, but it's looking pretty wet out there, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The McLaren likes the wet, so hopefully we can keep this position and keep going.
Well, we've got the 5-minute board, so we're going to be getting going shortly. But what do you think? You're obviously fighting for second in the championship. You've got a pretty good battle on your hand with the Schnitzelbaum guys, but they're starting quite a lot further back than you, so that looks pretty good for you.
Yeah, it definitely does. Let's hope the battle can continue on for the next few races as well. It's getting interesting.
All right. Wish you best of luck. Thanks for speaking to us. Thanks, Zach, there for opening the window. So we've got the 31. We've actually got a Pro-Am class on the front row as well. This is going to be Max Kronberg. As Adam has already said, he's a bronze driver and he has raced in GT4 Germany as well. So they will be starting. Johnny, if we just come round, give a little. I don't think too many of our drivers are going to want to speak to us today, just because it is it's pretty damp down here and it's starting to get even harder. So I think I'm going to be very damp today. If we just come back, we are going to go to the 22 Ivan Ekelschik. This is now a pro driver this weekend. They've reclassified it. Previously, it has been a Pro-Am driver. We're just going to continue along the grid. As I said, doesn't look likely that we're going to get to speak to a lot of our drivers, and the rain is actually getting a lot heavier down here now. So we're coming now onto the third row of the grid. We've got the number 19 Forsetti Motorsport. These are the guys that could be your championship winners at the end of this race. We're going to see if we can pop in. Are we able to get the door open and pop in and say hello quickly, or too wet?
If not, because it can...
Too wet. Okay, like I expected, it's going to be too wet for us to get to talk to any drivers. Alongside Mikey Porter, though, we've got the number 11 Schnitzelbaum car. Now, the Schnitzelbaum car is obviously that one that's fighting for P2 in the championship. And here's our other driver of that car, Joel Mesh. How are you feeling? It's a little bit wet down here.
Yeah, quite wet. All the cars in front just quite strong in the rain, but I hope my teammate can manage overtaking them, because down in front on P1 is our main opponent for the championship.
Yeah, well, your main opponent for the championship is going to be the first one finding the conditions out there. So with any luck, that could benefit you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think my teammate's going to manage it pretty well. He's quite experienced, so he'll just do the job, yeah.
Confidence in the teammate. And last week we did actually see that you had a couple of back issues coming out of the car. So is that something that we're worried about this weekend, or are you just, no, we're good to go?
Now I'm good to go. Last weekend I've just been really ill and didn't feel good, so every time I've been driving I just had really bad back problems, back pain and stuff. But
well, you are quite a tall driver, so to get in one of those cars is probably a little bit cramped.
In the Mercedes it's fine, but some other cars are just really a damn struggle. Like the Porsche, I can't fit in there. It's just no way.
All right, great insight. Final words on this race.
Good luck, have fun, everyone, and stay safe.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for speaking to us. That's Joel Mesh. He's second in the championship. Obviously, his teammate Marcel Markovic is racing in that car today, but he wasn't with us in round one, so he's not second in the championship. But Joel is. Spoke to Joel yesterday. He's really, really hoping that they can secure that deal and get that P2 in the championship. And I think with the weather, it's kind of, they say rain is the great equalizer. We're sort of gonna hope that we see some good battles. We are now getting a couple of the cars fired up. I have not yet seen the 1 minute board, so we are gonna quickly take a little bit of a walk further down. If we just see on the right here is the number 10 of Max Huber. He is leading the AM class right now, so expect him to be up there fighting with the others. And now we've got the 1 minute board. We're gonna go to an ad break and then get this race started.
Well, the pictures down on the grid with Izzy and cameraman Johnny told the story. The story is also told by the view down from the final corner. This is a very wet circuit. It's a very treacherous set of conditions. And to echo Izzy, it is certainly the great equaliser out there on the circuit. Who is going to come out on top in this GT4 Winter Series race? It's one of the least predictable races of the season, I would say. Some favourites further down the order. Some drivers we expect to come through the pack, and others that maybe would be slightly out of position in these wet conditions. Nonetheless, the race has formally begun then on this formation lap, and we expect that safety car to stay out there for at least 2 laps owing to the conditions. The grid for this one then will be started off with Zach Meakin on the pole position. It's Zach Meakin on pole position for this race. Max Grunberg starts alongside him on the front row in the Pro-Am entry. Ivan Ekelchik in the Pro class for the first time in the newly entered number 22 Wimmer Werk Motorsport car. Daniel Drexel starts from 4th position. Is probably going to have to slow down a little bit to make sure that everyone has a sporting chance of keeping up as we go through these formation laps. As you can see, it is certainly going to be a matter of dealing with the spray, I think, primarily, before we consider anything else. The spray is looking pretty wild on that back straight into turn 10, even before they're going at racing speeds. It looks like an ice rink down there at 10 as well, doesn't it? You can't afford to stray wide at that corner onto the painted tarmac. That will be absolutely like sheet ice. That's the thing, obviously. Drivers often favour the outside line in wet conditions, but as Mikey Porter ably demonstrated in the Perez race that took place in the rain, it is quite easy to just go a step too wide, end up on the paint, and then into the gravel from there. So then expecting at least one more lap under safety car. We'll see if it is only one or whether there will be more laps to contest under these conditions. But as we alluded to in the build to this one, the point situation is this: 287 points for Jamie Day and Mikey Porter. They are 58 points clear of Joel Mesh on 229 points. Joel Mesh is separated from his teammate who's currently in the car, Marcel Marshevix. That's because Marshevix was not present at the season opener at the Circuito Estoril. Interestingly, Charles Dawson is a few positions out of sync. I don't know whether he thinks we're racing or something, but he's a little bit further up the order than he was scheduled to be. So Charles has seemingly maybe gone a little bit early there. He now backs up behind into his place. So I think he did decide to pull the pin, thinking that the racing had started there. He now sinks back into 15th. where he is supposed to be starting. But Joel Mesh then on 229 points. Tom Levin and Zach Meakin on 203 with 75 points left to score in the overall championship. So Levin and Meakin could still challenge Mesh for the second place in the championship. That's what Joel Mesh was talking about on the grid with Izzy. Very much aware that, especially with Marcel Marcevic starting from row 3 of the grid, he could lose that cushion for the battle in second in the points if things don't go Marcel's way. But for Jamie Day and Mikey Porter, for the Fassetti Motorsport duo, this could be the championship race for them. They need to outscore, or rather, they don't need even to outscore. They only need to really finish in about the same ballpark as Schnitzelbaum Racing, and they will be fine as long as they're not outscored by more than 8 points by Marcel Marcevic. They will claim the overall championship in this first race. So then, the safety car is still out there. The lights are still on as they go through turn 13. Now, Zach Meakin is holding the pack up as if he thinks we are going back racing, but with the safety car lights on and no bulletin that I have seen to suggest that the safety car is coming in, I don't know that we are going racing this time. We are not going racing this time, so hopefully everyone is up to speed on that. Zach was just pulling back, hoping optimistically that we were going racing this time, but that's been decided not to be the case. So one more lap under safety car, not back to racing conditions yet. Zach Meakin would love to try and get a victory on the board. It's been a pretty solid year for Elite Motorsport. They started on slightly rough footing in the first couple of events, but have really sprung into life from Jerez onwards. Have only missed out on the podium once in the last 9 races, that being the 10th place finish at Aragon, when, of course, we saw them collected by one of the CV Performance Mercedes, and they would ultimately have to bring the car in for repairs that cost them a lap. So Meakin looking to continue what has been a strong run of form. From what I can see, Elite Motorsport are yet to win a sprint race this season. They've won a couple of endurance races, but no sprints as of yet. So Meakin has a great opportunity here to try and rectify that statistic. Tom Levin will get the same opportunity, of course, on Sunday in the morning sprint race. Still yet to see any updated bulletin in regard to the safety car coming in. So as of now, the safety car is out, and that's all we know. As you can see, these conditions are very, very treacherous indeed. They will have been taking note of the spray situation in race control, just as I did on the first lap of the race as well. All has to be taken into consideration, not just from a safety perspective, but also from the perspective of keeping these cars in one piece. The teams will almost immediately dive straight into, of course, their summer racing program after this weekend, and the last thing they want is to have undue risk of the cars ending up in the repair shop. The number 78 Elite McLaren crew have a spare chassis here in the paddock, the car that ran as number 27 at Jerez round 3 of the season, and that's been ever more cannibalized over the course of the last several weeks. Initially they took a door from it, and then I think the entire rear end has been lifted from the 27 onto the 78, rear end bodywork I should say, not the entire rear of the car. Another lap under safety car then. The Nissan GTR continues to lead the way. Of course, it does help as the cars continue to circulate. The best way to get standing water off the racing line is by having cars on the circuit. Hopefully, Safety car will not be out for too long. So the lights on the safety car, we hope we'll see them extinguished before too long. As you can see, everyone's still trying to get heat into those wet tyres, and of course the wet tyres are rather fickle things to deal with at the best of times. Once it starts to get too dry, you have to try and keep them cool. In the very, very wet conditions, it's more about making sure they have any temperature in them at all, even with the tread in the tyre. If they're absolutely ice cold, there is no shot of finding grip. We ride on board with Max Kronberg then, the W&S Motorsport car, making its second appearance of the season after making a winning GT4 Win Series debut at Jerez. Always expected this to be a strong layout, a strong lineup of Kronberg and Josef Knopp. Knopp with a lot of GT4 experience. He's still fairly tender age. I think he's still 19 actually, last I checked. A very, very young talent indeed, but a driver we have seen show out on several occasions. He is indeed just 19 years old, Josef Knopp. Max Kronberg, the teammate, the driver in the car in second place at the moment, is a slightly older driver, 37-year-old racer from Berlin, but also a championship winner in the NLS Cayman Trophy. The Cayman Trophy class, of course, the same cars that we see in our Cayman class. And he won the NLS Championship for that specification of car back in 2021. 10th in the 2024 GT4 Germany Series run by the ADAC, and took a race win there last year on his way to 8th in the standings. Also took 3rd in the GT4 European Series' Pro-Am Cup. So a very, very capable driver is Max Kronberg, as evidenced by where that car sits on the grid. 18 minutes left on the clock. We do again expect this race to begin shortly. There's discussion ongoing, I can tell you, as to exactly when we're going to see the cars roll. So another one I'd say that's worth watching in these conditions is Ivan Ekelchik as well, in 3rd place in the 22 Wimmer Werk car. He is very impressive in these kind of conditions. He's very experienced in the GT4s in general. Expect him to be a favourite. The safety car has been declared as coming in this lap, so we are going to go racing this time by. So finally the safety car will be withdrawn. It'll be on Zach Meakin to control the field as they head out of turn 14 and into green flag conditions for the first time. For Meakin, there's one less thing to worry about off the line, of course. No 2x2 formation start. So he doesn't have anyone alongside him, but Kronberg will be looking to anticipate the launch from Meakin to try and challenge. Keep an eye as well on that 3rd row of the grid. Marshevics and Porter, Mikey Porter in particular, could well end up driving to a championship in this one. Only the Forsetti team and Joel Mesh, in other words, the number 11 Mercedes ahead of Porter, only those 2 entries are technically capable of winning the overall championship, but it could be this race that seals the title in the overall championship. So then the cars are rolling at speed for the first time this weekend in racing conditions. Zach Meakin heads out onto the main straight. We go racing in the GT4 Winter Series, and it's Zach Meakin that will lead them towards the first corner over the crest of the hill. You can see the spray emitting from these cars as they run down to the first turn. Meakin on the brakes for the first corner, gets it stopped. Does everybody succeed? It's certainly no guarantee in conditions such as these. Enrico Federer, I believe that was, just diving down the inside there, making up a position or two in the process in the Cayman Trophy car. You'll note that Enrico Federer and Willi Kuhne's car has gained some colour since last week. It's a different chassis from the one that Willi crashed in Aragon. Thankfully, he's all good. He's okay. A little bit sore the next morning, but otherwise fine. There is the number 11 car then hounding the back of Daniel Drexel in the early stages, and Drexel runs it very wide there. That might actually work out in his favour though on corner exit. Being on the paint, not so much, and he ends up in the wall. Daniel Drexel, once he was on the paint, it was always going to be tricky to put the power down, and the 77 Resume Porsche finds the wall there. Just got into it with Marcel Marcevics coming out of the corner as the Porsche slid. The Porsche slid into the side of the Mercedes and then ricocheted into the barrier, and that's so easy to do in these conditions. Zach Meakin has got a good lead at the front of the order then. Marcel Marcevics' car seems to be A-OK as well, in fourth position after just getting a nibble of contact there. You see there's position swapping going on between the two NM Racing cars. The 10 and the 16. Luke Ibanez getting past Max Huber. We've got 3 NM Racing Team Mercedes-AMG GT4s this weekend. Unfortunately, we also have a safety car out on circuit. That's just been declared formally on our timing screens, but the car is out there and ready to go, as one would expect. So Daniel Drexel's incident has necessitated the resumption of safety car conditions. Daniel Drexel, unfortunately, out of this race, and very, very heavy contact with the concrete barrier. I don't know that that car is going to be repairable on site. Hopefully it is. It would be a disappointing end for Resume's season if it is indeed not repairable. So 13 minutes of this race left to run. As it stands, if things finish as they are, Mikey Porter would claim the overall championship on behalf of he and Jamie Day, and of course Fassetti Motorsport, not just in the drivers' overall standings, but also in the team's overall standings. They would, however, slightly lose out to Marcel Marcevics within the, or to Marcevics and Joel Mesh within the pro class, which is scored separately from the overall standings, which means that when someone like Max Kronberg is up there in second place, that means that the overall standings and the pro standings aren't quite in line. But for Mikey Porter, the big one, the overall championship, is currently within grasp, but we've got a graphic illustration there at turn 6 through turn 7 of just how easy it is to get it wrong. Daniel Drexel's car is looking decidedly worse for wear. Hopefully Daniel himself is A-OK, but these conditions certainly do bite, as do the painted runoff areas and curbs. It's a battle to make use of them exactly as much as you can and no more under dry conditions. Then once we get to the wet conditions, it's more a matter of trying to stay out of it. On that occasion, Daniel Drexel had no choice but to try and accelerate on the paint, and that was the net result. A very, very torn up Porsche Cayman GT4. Just over 11 minutes left on the clock then. We'll see how long this recovery process takes and whether the incident there gives any pause to race control as to whether the race will get back underway. I would suspect they will try and get this race back underway under green flag conditions, but we'll wait and see what decisions are made and when. For now, of course, they need to focus on getting that 77 car removed. It looked like they were trying to tow it into the escape road. I do believe they have now cleared that. So they did manage to pull it with the pickup truck. I thought they might need a crane, but understanding that the car is now been removed. We'll get a look at this again then. Drexel drifting out wide into turn 6. Tries to carry the speed on the outside line. More grip there on the outside in these wet conditions. And as he came back over the curb there, the lifted part of the curb, he just lost traction. Kissed the side of the Schnitzelau Mercedes. And once that happened, he was on a collision course with the concrete wall. And unfortunately, Razoon have a lot of work to do now to try and get that car back underway. You can see there that Daniel Drexel is up, walking around, and seems to be all right. So that's good news from everyone's perspective. However, for Leo Pichler, he's going to be hoping in particular that that car is repairable. He's set to be joining Daniel Drexel for the endurance race and also in the car solo for race number 2. And we've seen Leo Pichler, of course, win races in this GT4 Winter Series season already. So we're very excited to welcome him back onto the grid. But unfortunately, that potential to see Pichler back out there hangs in the balance and relies on a hefty repair job from Razoon. So to reiterate, if you're just joining us, 8 minutes and 50 seconds there or thereabouts left in this race. And we are under safety car conditions. The race began under safety car. The race began with the prospect of a champion coming into this weekend, coming into this race specifically. And as it stands, Porter and Day would claim the overall championship with a 5th place finish behind Marshevics in 4th. But for now, we are focused more so on when we'll get this race back underway. We only had effectively half a lap under green flag conditions before the safety car was thrown back out there. It was the first lap back under green that Daniel Drexel had his moment out there on circuit. We've seen him out of the car. Zach Meakin then is your leader from Max Kronberg of WNS Motorsport. Ivan Ekelchik in 3rd place for Wimmer Werk Motorsport, and Marcel Marshevics and Mikey Porter sit there in 4th and 5th place respectively. Some other new faces to discuss on the grid include Mikael Makes, who joins the CV Performance Group entry. I think he is here instead of the originally scheduled Jan-Philipp Springhob, which is a bit of a shame. We've seen Jan-Philipp in the GT4 Win Series previously, and he's been impressive, or in the GT Win Series previously, and has been impressive. Mikael Makes, I believe, in his series debut. CV Performance entering a 2nd car within the Pro class in addition to their Pro-Am entry, which is also something they did, of course, in the round of the season that took place last week at Motorland Aragon. Mikael Makes, the Czech driver, is a former champion in TCR Eastern Europe, won that championship back in 2021. Has since focused in on national racing within Germany. Got 2 podiums last year in the ADAC GT4 Germany series. He'll be looking to make his mark on the GT4 fraternity once again over the course of 2024, getting his season into swing with us in the GT4 Win Series on our final weekend. Hearty mix of guest appearances and full season entries so far in this season. And it's always the interesting thing is to see new teams come in and how they stack up to our established championship contenders. You see there the recovery process still ongoing on the Milwaukee back to resume Porsche. I suspect we're going to have at least one more lap under safety car. That's been a slightly lengthy recovery. Does unfortunately eat into the race time, the green flag time for our drivers, but I suspect that at least a couple of the drivers in the cockpits right now would rather just get to the flag and call it a day. Not everybody loves these wet conditions. Zach Meakin, I'm sure, would like to fight for this one if he can, and the safety car has just been declared as coming in this lap, so they must have got that car on the flatbed and moved away pretty sharpish. The safety car lights have been extinguished, which means that with around 4.5 minutes to go, we will cross the line back into green flag racing. That means we're going to have something in the region of 2 laps of racing, maybe 3. Should just about be 3 to go as they cross the line. Zach Meakin pulls the pin and we return to racing speed then. Kronberg, Ekelchik, Martovics and Porter, your top 5. Enrico Federer, maybe one to watch as well from 8th position. He snuck up quite a few places in the first lap under green flag that was cut short by the previous incident. Now, if things stay green, he might make up a few more places. Ekelchik goes to the inside line then as they run to the first turn. Tries to get up the inside of Max Kronberg, but can't get that done. Mikael Makes there defending up against Luke Ibanez in the 16. Everyone through turns 2 and 3. It doesn't look like there's been any changes at the sharp end, and goodness me, Mikael Makes there a bit sideways. Meanwhile, Mikey Porter trying to find his way past Marcel Martovics on this first lap. Through turn 5 they go. Zach Meakin through turn 6, I should say. So turn 4 was where Porter was trying to make the move previously. This is turn 7 and 8 here up the hill towards turn 9, and then of course you've got that back straight into turn 10, which is now a slightly smoother corner than it was a few years ago. They got rid of the quasi hairpin. Max Huber making up places. He fell down the order in the first sector, but is now powering his way back up there. Oh, and a bit deep into the corner there from Ivan Ekelchik. Did he get that stopped? I'm not so sure. No, he didn't. Ekelchik then losing out to both Martovics and Porter, and now has to worry about Luke Ibanez behind him. Ibanez in the third of the entries from NM Racing Team. Great to welcome a third car from Nil Montserrat stable onto the grid for the first time. Zach Meakin, though, that crosses the line with the advantage. He's built a 2.3 second lead on this lap alone. Meakin is looking very impressive in the Artura in these conditions. Going defensive there is Kronberg, I believe. In fact, no, Martovics is looking to the inside of the 31 car. Can't get it done there, though. Enrico Federer trying to find his way past Mikael Makes. Federer, the talented youngster in the Cayman Trophy class, has often played spoiler among the GT4s. The Cayman Trophy spec cars, slightly less powerful, slightly different suspension. However, in these wet conditions, they do seem to be able to keep up and go blow for blow with the full-fat GT4 cars. We have 2 different specs of Caymans out there, the Cayman Trophy machines and then the GT4 RS CS, which is the car you see entered into the Pro and Pro-Am classes. And the Am class, for that matter, of course, Dennis Bourne for Surg Team Rennsport also out there in one of those machines. 60 seconds left on the clock then, and Zach Meakin heads towards turn number 10. I believe we will get one more lap of racing at the conclusion of this. There was a good scrap going on as well in the back of shots between Alberto Di Martino and Max Huber for the AM class lead. Now Huber fell down the order after we went back to green, and now they're side by side. You can see the two Mercedes AMG GT4s through shot. Who's got the inside line there? It's Alberto Di Martino. Huber trying to follow him around the outside to try and claim this AM class lead, an 8th overall. But Huber not quite able to find a way past Di Martino at the moment. Di Martino, technically speaking, has the experience advantage. Certainly in terms of years on earth, but definitely in terms of racing as well. Max Huber often goes racing in cars like AC Cobra historic machines, and that means he's used to a power slide, the likes of which we just saw through turn 13. Max Kronberg actually gained marginally there on Zach Meakin going on to the previous lap. So Meakin losing a little bit of time, but I suspect he's just managing it in these tricky conditions. Someone else who is managing it, managing a lot of pressure, is Alberto Di Martino in the battle with Max Huber, and the same applies as well to the Fossetti Motorsport driver Mikey Porter in 4th position. I reiterate, as things stand, Porter and Day will claim the overall championship in this race. They will lose 3 points. Oh, but this is potentially a drama with Ivan Ekelchik trying to get past Mikey Porter. That was a little bit heart in mouth, but as it stands, losing just 3 points to Marcel Maršovics will claim the championship. Or losing just 3 points to Joel Day as a result of Marcel Maršovic's performance will mean that Day and Porter claim the title with a 4th overall place finish if he can keep it there. Alberto Di Martino and Huber still going at it there through turns 7 and 8. Huber still not finding his way through, but Zach Meakin has found his way into a nice, comfortable cushion at the sharp end of the order. He is on course here to secure his first sprint race win of the season, and Mikey Porter will be focusing on holding off Ekelchik and Ibanez here for the last couple of turns. And if he succeeds in doing that, he will be the overall champion along with Jamie Day in the GT4 Winter Series. Zach Meakin heads around at the final turn then, sees the checkered flag and will claim the victory. Kronberg takes 2nd place, Maršovics in 3rd position, and the 4th car across the line is Mikey Porter, who claims the win for himself and Jamie Day in the overall championship. The overall scores across all 4 classes, Mikey Porter and Jamie Day will be your inaugural GT4 Winter Series champions in the overall standings. They won't quite have clinched the Pro class just yet. However, the overall championship and the championship by team, the team's title, will now be beyond anyone else's reach. Max Huber managed to get past Alberto, or managed to, did manage to get past Alberto Di Martino to win the AM class. And Enrico Federer just disappeared up the road in Cayman Trophy. But Zach Meakin has claimed a win in treacherous conditions. He will feel like he didn't do much racing over the course of that. But managing the car in these treacherous conditions under safety car is actually no mean feat. So I'm sure everybody has had their eyes on stalks for the past half hour, even under the safety car. And you can see everybody being pretty careful on the run back to pit lane as well. I think everyone has just tried to take this as easy as they possibly can. Max Kronberg was 2nd overall. Something he almost lost out to there with Marcel Maršovics on his tail. But it'll also claim the Pro-Am class win as well for W&S Motorsport. But per my maths, provisionally speaking, Mikey Porter will now be beyond reach along with Jamie Day in the overall standings, and that will be a first championship for Fassetti Motorsport, who made their racing debut with us in January in Estoril in the GT4 Winter Series. They won their first ever race as a team, as an outfit. It all started in December. The project very quickly put together by Joe Holloway and his colleagues. And again, provisional maths here, but my understanding is that Porter and Day are now beyond reach in the overall standings. The gap would be 55 points, and there would be 50 points left to score. Porter heading back then into pit lane. Of course, Zach Meakin will be the one to park underneath the podium in centre square, if you will, as the race winner for Elite Motorsport. A great result for them as well. Elite Motorsport have already clinched a couple of endurance races, but now the sprint falls in their favour for the first time. Top three cars pull up underneath the podium. Zach Meakin will celebrate. Of course, Mikey Porter, as someone who's not on the podium, has actually ended up back in the assembly area, but I'm sure Fassetti Motorsport will find him to celebrate. Zach Meakin, I felt sorry for his knees there as he worked his way out of the car, but he gets himself out of the car now. Scurries over into dry conditions, understandably. Celebrating there with his dad. Great result for Mikey Porter's adversary at times last year, Zach Meakin, who has been really exciting to watch along with Tom Levin. The Elite Motorsport McLaren always seems to be in amongst it, successful or not. And on this occasion, certainly successful. Tom Levin watching on from the back of shot there as well. He'll be in the car tomorrow morning, and he'll be hoping potentially for slightly less hazardous conditions than the ones we got. And Zach Meakin, I'm sure in the next few minutes we'll hear from him as well. Tim Neuser wishing him well. And with the result in that race as well, they will be a lot closer they will be drawn a lot closer to the second place in the overall standings as well. They will have gained some 10 points over Joel Mesh in the championship as well. So that means more results of that nature versus Schnitzelnaum. They could yet be runners-up, vice champions in the GT4 Winter Series. They'll be pushing on to try and secure that up against Joel Mesh and Schnitzelnaum Racing. I believe Izzy is down there, so in due course we will throw down to her. I think, Izzy, yeah, I think you're ready to go, so we'll throw straight down to you. Let's go.
All right, hello everyone. We're down here in the pits for our first race winner. Race 1 winner of the GT4, Zach Meakin. That was a pretty interrupted race, but a good way to start the weekend.
It was, yeah. I was expecting the safety car to go on the second lap, so I prepared everything then. To my surprise, it stayed on. Managed to rip away at the beginning, got a good start. Then unfortunately the incident happened, safety car, but then I managed to replicate the start again, get away and comfortably there.
And not too many racing laps, but when you were at full speed, what are the conditions like out there?
The conditions, to be honest, they're not, well, they're slippery, of course, because it's rainy, but they're not too bad. It's kind of like this morning when we went out. It's wet, but it's good, it's raceable.
And obviously you've got the guys who are P2, or you're P2 in the championship, the guys who are behind you or fighting you for P2 in the championship, they finished behind you, so that's a good way to start, and hopefully for more tomorrow.
It is definitely. Hopefully Tom can keep it in the same position and we can have again for a battle for in the last race, so should be a good one.
And we're hoping that it's not going to be so wet tomorrow, so perhaps not as much learning of the conditions, but still.
Of course it keeps raining. I would like the wet for tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to be, sadly.
All right, well, we'll let you get off up to the podium. Congratulations. There's our race 1 winner of the GT4 Winter Series. And I think we're going to hope to speak to the champions in a minute, but for now, we'll go back up to Adam.
If we can find them, certainly. Mikey Porter is several hundred yards away from Izzy Browning's current position, though, having gone down to Parc Fermé. But the first race has concluded, and it was, of course, quite an interrupted race. But I do believe we have a couple of replays to look at from that one. Even though we didn't get many green flag laps in, we did have a couple of incidents to contend with. So we did eventually go to green flag racing after, I think, about a dozen minutes under the safety car. And it was Zach Meakin that led them away from the pole position. We started the race under safety car rather than having formation laps. And on the first green flag lap, Marcel Maršovics dove up the inside of Daniel Drexel. Drexel went wide into the corner, tried to have the traction around the outside of turn 5, but then unfortunately managed to catch the curb and then catch the barrier. That would bring out the safety car, understandably. Thankfully, we saw Drexel walk away from the incident. We did go back to green flag conditions with around 4.5 minutes of racing left to go. We got 3 green flag laps to conclude, and it was Zach Meakin that had the pace as they strode away. Of course, he was the only driver that didn't have to contend with the spray. The others, including the 84 car you saw going wide there, did. Mikael Makes having a few issues over the course of his stint. We had a bit of an AM class battle as well that eventually went the direction of Max Huber, but Alberto Di Martini in the 15 car put in a valiant defensive display to try and hold off Huber. And that was all going on as Mikey Porter was sat in 4th place, right where he needed to be, directly behind Schnitzellaum Racing's Marcel Maršovics, who, with that 3rd place, I think has allowed Joel Mesh's chances of an overall championship to slip away. Zach Meakin, the race winner in very tricky conditions, and Mikey Porter should have done enough for he and Jamie Day to secure the overall championship in the GT4 Winter Series. Of course, things are always up in the air until the final results are published, but the understanding I have is that there are not enough points left to score for Joel Mesh. Therefore, the champions will be Porter and Day. Of course, they largely, it sounds like, down at Forsetti are focusing more on the pro class points, where Joel Mesh still does have a chance. It's a slightly different scoring system in the pro class. So then the results of this one, Zach Meakin taking the win by 3 seconds eventually over Schnitzellaum Racing's, or rather over Max Kronberg. Marcel Maršovics taking 3rd place overall ahead of Mikey Porter and Ivan Ekelchik. Luke Ibanez for NM Racing Team in 6th position. Enrico Federer taking 7th, winning the Cayman Trophy. Max Huber in AM is victorious ahead of Alberto Di Martini and Dennis Bunn. The second of the Pro-Am cars home after Max Kronberg was Charles Dawson, all the way down in 11th place. Mikael Sander taking 12th, Nicholas Malloy in 13th. Mikael Makes seemingly struggling a little bit with the CV Performance car in this wet race. Franz Linden, our final finisher, and Daniel Drexel, of course, causing that return to safety car after that collision with the barriers. Hopefully he is a-okay. We saw him walk away, and let's hope that car can be repaired. So then we more than likely, again, per any or barring any surprise penalties or curveballs, it will be Mikey Porter and Jamie Day that claim the overall championship in this year's GT4 Win Series with that 4th place result in race number 1. However, they unfortunately will not get to celebrate on the podium. It will, of course, be they will be on the pro class podium, of course, because we do the class podiums here. So hopefully we will see Porter and Day up there on the steps of the podium as well to celebrate their overall championship win, provisional overall championship win. But Zach Meakin will be celebrating a victory a victory that I'm sure has felt like a long time coming for him. He seemed pretty happy. And I understand that for the first time this season, I can now hand over to a new broadcast colleague. It's Andy McEwen joining us from the podium.
Thank you very much, Adam. Yes, a rather soggy podium down here in the pit lane, but a big crowd assembled to greet our drivers. We're going to start with our pro class top three and with perhaps the star of the show. We'll start with our third place finisher, Jamie Day. Or Mikey Porter, indeed. Mikey Porter makes his way onto the podium then after what was a crucial race in his championship. Second place in the pro class, Marcel Marcevic, who gets a big round of applause from the crowd down below. But finally, we have our race winner for Elite Motorsport. It is Zach Meakin. Zach, the race winner in very, very difficult conditions out there today. Lots of laps under the safety car, but once we did go racing, he mastered the conditions perfectly. So we'll pause for a second for the trophies to be handed out. And our Gedlich racing team are on hand to present our top three pro drivers with their trophies. Jamie Day in particular probably never has been happier with a third place. Zach Meakin, in fact, bringing the car home in this first race of the weekend. So the drivers pose for the photos, and once they're done with that, I'm going to try and grab a word quickly with our third place driver, our champion, of course, after what was a really tricky race. I think I can probably come out. We'll let the top two go, but I do just want to have a quick chat with Mikey, because Mikey, they were atrocious conditions out there, but you knew how important it was just to stay out of trouble and bag the points.
Yeah, I knew that, you know, it's so where everyone's going to make mistakes, and I was just doing my thing, you know, maybe not the fastest, but keeping it on track and gaining a few positions because I've been making mistakes. But yeah, just keeping it clean.
Were you feeling the pressure out there? It was a big race, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, most of us is on a safety car, so not really, but you know, I just kept it on track, so just finishing really.
Excellent. We'll let you go and get out of the rain, but I just wanted to have a quick chat with Mikey Porter, who we believe has clinched the championship with that race. Right then, we now move on to our Pro-Am top three, and we will start with our third place finisher, Nick Malloy. Nick fights his way through the crowd of drivers backstage to make his way onto the podium. In second place, Charles Dawson. But the winner for W&S Motorsport in the Pro-Am category was Max Kronberg. Big congratulations to our top three drivers in the Pro-Am category, who again were out there in very, very difficult conditions. The trophies are gathered and handed over to our top three drivers. Many of them, of course, a factor within the top 10 overall in that one. And a big congratulations particularly to Max for claiming a class victory here. He looks delighted with that one, rightly so. Pauses for the photographs, which I think are just about done, and we're good to let the drivers go then. You go and get yourselves inside and out of the rain, because we've got more drivers to greet, two more podiums to do, and our next one is for the AM class of drivers, and we will start with the third place driver in the AM category, Dennis Bowen. Dennis, there we go, out he goes onto the podium, and the third place step. None of the drivers want to come out onto the podium, and I can't really blame them. Second place in the AM class, though, was Alberto De Martin. Alberto, there he is, the Spaniard out onto the podium. It was an NM Racing 1-2 in the end. Alberto second in class, but the class winner in the AM category was Max Huber, who runs out onto the podium. That's the energy we're looking for. Lots of hard work went into that one. Max coming out on top in pretty convincing fashion in the end. And NM Racing with a particularly strong start to their weekend here in Catalonia. Conditions, we believe, set to improve for tomorrow, and I'm sure the drivers will really be looking forward to that, an opportunity to really stretch their legs out on the circuit. So photos will be done. We've got one more class of driver to welcome out onto the podium before we head into our second race of the day. And once these drivers are out of the way, we will welcome our Cayman class top 3, the Cayman Trophy, which always features some pretty hot competition, as it did here this afternoon. And coming home in 3rd place in the Cayman Trophy, Franz Linden. Congratulations, Franz. The Speedwork driver heads out onto the podium. Well, once again, we had a 1-2, this time for SR Motorsport. In 2nd place, Michael Sander.
Thank you.
Well done, Michael, and his teammate in the end taking the class victory. That was Enrico Forderer. Enrico out onto the podium. The team are still stood downstairs in the rain, but they're very, very happy to see 2 of their drivers up on the podium at the end of a pretty difficult race. So the last set of trophies are handed out. And again, another set of photos to be completed. I might try and just sneak in and have a little word with Enrico Forderer, maybe find out what his thoughts on the conditions were after a lot of time behind the safety car. Let's see if we can. Enrico, can we get a quick chat with you just before you leave? We'll let everyone else go. Congratulations, Enrico. Do you mind if I join you on the top step? There we go. Enrico, really tough conditions out there. And of course, you were back in the pack. The spray must have been unbelievable.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. You didn't see anything. But yeah, I managed to go on the right side at the start and overtake 4 people in the first lap. And after the safety car, I was again able to overtake, I think, 1. And yeah, it was a fantastic race for me.
We saw a lot of drivers struggling to find the grip out there. How long did it take you to find the grip? It's not easy behind the safety car.
Yeah, it's not very easy, and also the tires are not really that hot, that how they need to be. But yeah, it took me like a half lap, and then my tires was warm, so I could push.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, Enrico. Well done on the class victory. We've got cars leaving the pit lane now for our 2nd race of the day, and we'll have all of the action from the penultimate round of the championship in the Formula Winter Series up next.
Race 1 of the Formula Wind Series then is just a few moments away. Cars have been released onto the circuit. Race 1 of 3 for this weekend. I've had more than a few drivers come up to me and demand that I make sure the weather doesn't turn against them. Unfortunately, I have failed in my mission. They are going to be doggy paddling through this one. It's a slightly odd-looking grid per the information that I've got for this, and that is because the practice times have had to be deployed to set the grid for this race. Unfortunately, the qualifying session earlier on was red flagged pretty early doors. The conditions this morning were even worse than what we've got now here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. It was torrential on the Saturday morning here. And so the grid, as I have it, is actually set to be topped by Adam Hideg from Yenza Motorsport, is the information that I've got on my screen, although a formal grid sheet has seemingly not been published. And that means that Yenza Motorsport have a very good opportunity to secure their first podium and more from there. And if the information I have in front of me is indeed correct, that also means that we have a few other considerations as well. Andres Cardenas, who sits just 5 points back from Griffin Peebles in the fight for the championship. He starts from 8th place, Cardenas, and Peebles, if the information I have in front of me is correct, is starting in 20th place. That is more than a little alarming for the Spanish licensed Australian driver as he works his way up the order. Griffin celebrating his leap year birthday with us. He's a 29th of February baby, and he celebrated his 16th/4th birthday with us last week, and he'll be looking to try and hold on to that championship win, championship lead I should say, to try and win the Formula Wind Series, following in the footsteps of Kasper Stuka, who took the championship of course last year. He is now moving up the world in single-seaters, having also won the Italian F4 Championship over the course of 2023. He's now signed to a junior deal with Red Bull, and in general seems to be moving up the world. Speaking of Red Bull juniors, through shot there went Enzo Tarnvanichkal. Enzo, who has been a really exciting young prospect in the world of karting, a world karting champion back in 2022. We saw him racing for the first time with us in Aragon, his first ever appearances in single-seater car racing, and he is one that is tipped by many to be a hot prospect in the future. But the information that I have regarding the grid, which I'm hesitant to fully believe, because obviously we are yet to see a grid sheet published, but he's 26th per the information I've got in front of me. So that means he is going to have his work cut out for him in a serious way as they work their way through the first few laps. To be in the midfield here in these conditions is to sign up for a face full of spray and a lack of visibility, unfortunately. So a lot of these drivers are really going to have to work on instinct alone. And it's impressive that so many of these drivers do have those instincts baked in at such an early age. Of course, we're talking about in a lot of cases 15, 16-year-old drivers here, and yet they already have a decade's worth of racing experience through the world of karting at their fingertips. It is very, very impressive. We do have a few drivers, of course, who are slightly older, into their second, maybe third season of Formula 4 in some cases. Others who have come into Formula 4 having gone down a different route prior. For example, Ella Lloyd, who's in her second weekend in a single-seater after joining us in Aragon with Rodin. She's 18, and she's previously raced in Ginettas through the GT5 category, and before that Ginetta Juniors. Also now 18 is Gianmarco Pradell. Happy birthday for yesterday, Gianmarco, the US racing driver who we've seen on the podium a few times already. He is now 18, having celebrated his birthday in the paddock yesterday. US Racing even had the balloons ready to go. Very considerate. And he'll be looking to try and seal his season off with a victory. You can see how treacherous the conditions are out there. That's Keanu Alazari, one of our favourites, just having a bit of a moment down there on the grid. So Izzy Browning, even the approach to the grid is treacherous. This race is going to be very, very hard work.
Hello everyone, welcome down to the grid. Yeah, treacherous is probably the correct word. As you said, Keanu Alazari having a bit of a moment on the grid. It is definitely still wet down here, I can tell you that for free. You can probably see everybody's got their raincoats on. We are just waiting for our pole sitter to come down. As Adam said, our pole sitter is going to be Adam Hideg. Pretty good going for the Yenza guys. They're pretty glad to be starting on that pole position, but obviously they are the first ones to discover the conditions, and the conditions are looking anything but kind. So I am going to see if we can get a word with our pole sitter, but the team's kind of in there at the moment, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to talk to our pole sitter. Are we able to have a quick word, Adam? Able to have a quick word? Pole position, this is going to be quite a treacherous race, so how are we feeling ahead of this?
Yeah, it will be a tricky race. Now it's just behind the front, so it looks like it's quite wet, so be in front and hope for the best.
One of the first pole positions for the Yenza team on this Formula Winter Series grid, so are you feeling nervous at all?
Not really. I trust the team, so I think we have a good setup, and let's have a nice race.
All right, well, best of luck. Thank you for speaking to us. Yeah, so there is our pole sitter. We are just now seeing Matthias Ferreira come in. I'm also going to see if I can grab a word, because he is kind of in with an outside shot of the championship. Adam's already explained to you. There's two that are more likely to take the championship, but he fancies his chances as well. Matthias, can we just grab a quick word with you? You're starting from a pretty good position. Obviously, things are going to be pretty treacherous out there. So, first run down to turn one is a long one. How are we feeling?
I mean, it's my first time here in this track, and also in the weather is a bit hard. So I'll just give my best. I'm still in the fight for the championship. So, yeah, let's see what happens.
You missed our last round in Aragon, but you're back, and I saw on Instagram a couple of days ago you're ready to go for this championship, aren't you?
Yeah, even missing one round, I'm still in the fight. So yeah, I'll give my best and let's see what happens.
Best of luck. Thanks for speaking to us. Right, as you can see, it's still getting pretty wet, so we're going to see if we can take a little bit of a walk down. We are just about to get the 1 minute boards. We've got Jan Brzezowski. He also missed the Aragon round. He's now back with us. And Akshay Bora. Akshay has had a really consistent season, a lot of points finishes. A shame not so good a weekend in Aragon, but definitely hoping to be back in those consistent places this weekend. And as we do that, we get the 1 minute board. So we're going to go to an ad break and then we'll get this race underway.
Well, you can see the rain lights on the back of the cars, and that's going to be the story in this Formula Winter Series race. The conditions are certainly looking lively. The 15-second board is out. As you can see on the tower in the back of shot, as you saw on the grid down with Izzy, it is Adam Hideg who is set to lead them away as this race rolls for the formation lap. Adam Hideg starting from pole position alongside Matthias Ferreira. Third place on the grid is Jan Pusharovsky. In fourth place is Akshay Bora. Ernesto Rivera and Keanu Alazari start from row 3. Row 4 of the grid, Kabir Anurag alongside Andres Cardenas, Flavio Olivieri and Rene Lammers round out the top 10. Peter Bazinelos in 11th place and Enia Fry in 12th position. 13th place for Mikael Pedersen alongside Arthur Dorizon, Nathan Ty and Thomas Strauben in 15th and 16th. Looks like one of the Technicar machines hasn't gotten off the line there in the back of shot. Maxime Riemann, Douwe de Decker in 17th and 18th. Moving on to row 10, Gianmarco Pradel and Griffin Peebles. Peebles, who leads the championship, he starts from 20th. Maciej Guadish also a long way down. He'll start from 21st alongside Edouard Bonia. Lucas Flusha in 23rd place. Jack Beaton from 24th. A lot of cars that we expect up the front out of position. René Francot in 25th place in the car that was previously driven by Via Block. Enzo Tarnvanichkal in 26th. Harrison, Savinkov, Filippo Fiorentino and Lenny Reed round out the top 30. Row 16 of the grid is Victor Dobzhansky and Ella Lloyd. Kiko Macedo starts from 33rd on the grid. Lorenzo Castillo to start from 34th. Preston Lambert and Nathaniel Berraby line up the back row of the grid. Just the 18 rows on this occasion, only, in quotation marked, 36 starters for this one. The race has gotten underway under safety car conditions, so the clock is already ticking on this race with 28 minutes and change left to go. I suspect that we'll see 2 laps under safety car, and then they'll start to consider potentially getting the race underway under green flag conditions, as we saw just a few moments ago in the GT4 race. But the clock is ticking, 27 minutes 52 left to go, and we are under safety car conditions. Of course, that means that Hideg doesn't have to worry about a standing start with Us Racing's Matthias Ferreira just a few yards behind him. And so Ferreira from second place will be looking to try and get the best run possible out of the last couple of corners and on to the main straight. But for Adam Hideg, this is quite the opportunity that has been parked in front of him here. And for Yenza Motorsport as well. They've really, to be completely honest, scarcely appeared within the top 10 this season. A couple of instances of running in the top 10 for Yenza. But for Adam Hideg, it is a really golden opportunity to try and get their best result of the season and maybe get a big #1 trophy to go along with it. That would be the ideal scenario, I'm sure. Cars then onto the main straight with that safety car out there. As you can see, the race distance for this one is the half-hour duration plus 1 lap. So once the clock hits 0, the lap that we're on at that point will be the penultimate lap. They'll cross the line once more onto the final lap, and then the checkered flag will wave from there. Unlike our other 3 championships, there's no chance that this first race is going to decide the title one way or the other. However, if Andres Cardenas, there in 8th place, can score some points, there he goes through shot in the 18 car. If he can score some points and Griffin Peebles down in 20th can't make enough headway to score any of his own, then that will be a big swing in the championship consideration. Just 5 points between them. Griffin Peebles on 121, Andres Cardenas on 116. We run the F1 point system here, so points scored in the top 10, 25 for a win. 10th place will score you just the 1 point. So it is very much an important thing to be in that top 10, which is something Cardenas can quite easily achieve from 8th. For Griffin Peebles, he's got a lot more work to do from P20. There he is, just behind Gianmarco Pradel, going through shot. And quite the trio of machinery there. Red flag, though, has been put out on the circuit. Now, I'm unclear as to why the red flag has gone out. The red flag has been declared. Have to see quite what the justification is in due course. The red flag has been put out onto the circuit, which to me suggests that they're not ready to start. I don't think there's anywhere there is a car off. I'm just hearing from some of the cam ops VRR director Rob that we have potentially got some more rain going on now around the circuit. You can see the water falling from the sky onto the circuit, and it does seem to have been getting worse over the last couple of minutes. So they have red flagged this race for the time being. I think under these circumstances the cars will now line up one by one in the pit lane. I believe that is the standard protocol. I'm glad for the sake of everyone's blushes, at least, that the red flag isn't to rescue anyone from the crane. We do, however, have a car slowing there briefly at turn 13. I didn't see quite who that was, but I thought it might have been Andres Cardenas. He's now running, though, at full pace. Everybody just stacking up here, of course, as they slow down to enter the pit lane. But the red flag is out then, and we will hopefully... the 11 car, I'm being told, has retired. So that is, unfortunately, Enzo Tarnvinichkal. So I don't know if he's stopped around the circuit or whether he's come into the garage, but Tarnvinichkal is in the garage. So Tarnvinichkal having an issue. So we'll see, hopefully, some more information as to what has caused the red flag in due course. Again, the safe bet, the wise money, would be on the worsening weather conditions around the circuit. We'll see if there are any external factors to consider. For now, red flags out. That means that all of our drivers head back into pit lane. Of course, the last place you want to be under these conditions is parked in an open top car. It'll puddle up pretty quickly in there, unfortunately. No one wants this race to happen more than Adam Hideg, of course. He has been presented this absolutely golden opportunity to work his way up the work his way into the winner's circle for the 2024 Formula One Series season. Club of drivers among this 30-plus car grid are able to take a win. And to add your name to that list is to prove quite the point going into the summer and the remainder of your single-seater career. And Hideg would love for this race to take place, but for now, the red flags are out there. And we understand it is purely down to, more than likely, purely down to the weather conditions, because we have obviously got our camera ops around the circuit and no one has reported anything like an incident out there on the track. So this is more than likely purely down to the weather. I understand that Enzo Tarnvinichkal, his reason for entering the garage on the first formation lap, or the first lap under safety car as the race started, was a steering issue. So they're trying to resolve that at the moment down at Campos. The 11 crew working hard to try and get that car going again. But for Campos' Enzo Tarnvinichkal, he seemingly has had to report a problem, and it's not one that can be worked on from the comfort or lack of comfort that is the fast lane, and they have had to bring that car into the garage. Edouard Borgna at the moment then in the 27 Yenza Motorsport car, of course one of 4 Yenzas out there on the circuit, the first of them being car that was leading under safety car conditions as the race got underway, Adam Hirdeg. There's Maciej Guadish then, the rookie that has really set alight the championship. He sits 3rd in the championship. It's this man with a lot of eyes on him though, Griffin Peebles, and that is a very closed umbrella. Well, it's an open umbrella, but it's closed in on him to, I think, make sure he gets minimal interruption as he gets his head in the game for the race. He'll have to start this one from all the way back in 20th, assuming we do get to go back to green flag conditions. And he is laser focused at the task at hand, and that task for this race is going to be to try and get himself into those points by hook or by crook. It's going to be a very tricky race for him when this one resumes. You can see the wet Hankook tyres there on the car. Lots of tread on those. Heard a few good things about the Hankook tyres from our drivers, Bianca Bustamante, who of course is racing this weekend in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia with the with the F1 Academy. She said some pretty glowing things about the Hankooks on her first experience with them at Jerez. Gianmarco Pradell there, just ahead of Peebles. This really is 3 very fast drivers there in the form of Peebles and championship leader Peebles, Maciej Guadish and Gianmarco Pradell in 19th, 20th and 21st. That is not where we'd expect them to be under normal circumstances on the grid. But it was practice times that ultimately decided the order for this one, as opposed to qualifying, since the qualifying effectively didn't take place. As a result of that, Adam Hirdeg, with that pole position, I think he will have been as surprised as anybody once it all shook out and he ended up with the pole, but it's an opportunity he'll take with both hands. Same applies, of course, to Andres Cardenas. The fact that he is up there in the top 10 in a point-scoring position with just 5 points between himself and championship leader Griffin Peebles, that is an opportunity he probably wouldn't have expected. He wouldn't think that someone like Griffin would be 20th on the grid. But since that's how it's shaken out, he can only try and take advantage. And from P7, he will do his best to do that. I say P7 because Ernesto Rivera, who was in the 5th place, he was the driver that I mentioned slowing down coming through turn 13 and 14. So Rivera, I suspect, will be shuffled back up to 5th, but he was registered 10th across the line. That is because he slowed down there as the cars came back into the pit lane. So I suspect Cardenas will ultimately resume the race from P8. This is all, of course, under the assumption that the race is resumed, because it is, as you can see on the shot, pretty torrential down there. One driver who's done some wet racing before is Ella Lloyd. However, the last time she did that, she had a roof over her head. Not so much luck this time, though, for Ella in her 2nd weekend of single-seater racing. She, however, is down with Izzy Browning.
All right, hi everyone. We come down into the pit lane. We've managed to find Ella Lloyd, who's going to give us a chat, and she's somewhat sheltering me at the moment, so I appreciate it. Ella, just tell us how the conditions are out there.
Yeah, obviously it's quite wet. It's like qualifying was going and they got cancelled. It's not too bad. It's just really like being coming across the track. But like the spray is the most difficult part because obviously you can't see the car in front, but just gotta get on with it. We used to do it from the UK.
And this is like some of your first single-seater races, so is this anything like you've done before?
Well, the weather is like quite similar to back home, obviously with the rain, and I'm quite used to driving in the west, so it's just basically the same and just gotta stay offline.
You've had some fantastic pace out there last weekend in your debut, so we're kind of waiting to see if you could do it again once we get the race restarted, aren't we?
Yeah, hopefully we can do the same again with a good pace, and the team's doing an amazing job, so I can't thank them enough.
Perfect. Best of luck. Thank you for speaking to us. Adam, that's it from down here in the pit lane. We'll head back up to you.
Thanks to Ella Lloyd and her umbrella there, keeping Izzy safe from the conditions at least a little during that interview. Course car heading around the circuit, I think doing a track inspection, one would assume. In these difficult conditions, safety is always the priority, and they're just wanting, I think, to make sure that we don't send these drivers into green flag conditions with a circuit that isn't really ready for them. And so I think with the rain increasing, ramping up over the last several minutes, the decision was taken to err on the side of caution and just hope that this rain is only momentary. It is just coming up on 3 o'clock local time here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. And my understanding has been that weather will ease up significantly around the 4 o'clock bracket. So hopefully we will get some drier conditions, or not drier, but at least less abrasive rain to contend with across the day, which will in turn make the circuit tenable for racing once again. You can see there some of the construction works that are being done to this Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. It is very much an active building site as well as a racing circuit at the moment, for better or worse. Quite the mega project that's going on in order to present a new look facility for the Spanish Grand Prix in a couple of months' time. I can tell you that they are working at a pace. There is a kind of additional cover going over the top of the pit building, and it wasn't there at all when we arrived to the circuit on Wednesday. It's now about half finished, and it's Saturday. Nonetheless, 3 days, and they've managed to do quite a lot of work, quite a lot of noticeable work within the paddock and pit area in the time that we've been here. This rain won't be helping them. It's certainly not helping us either around the circuit. The weather is certainly a cruel and harsh mistress at the best of times. We've had a lot of temperamental weather over the course of the last few months here in the Winter Series paddock. We've had a few rainy days, and then immediately thereafter a few sunny days afterwards as well. And actually, I must credit my sources at times like this. And Marcus Gedlich, obviously the founder of Gedlich Racing, the man behind the Winter Series package, he actually tipped me in on the El Nino Southern Oscillation weather phenomenon, which tends to happen in this region every 6 to 8 years. And that often does lead to increased rain. And that is quite possibly what we're seeing this year. It's a climate phenomenon that means we get periodical high winds, rain, a little more than you expect in tropical areas. And yeah, that treacherous out there at times this year. Of course, we have had some absolutely gorgeous days of racing as well. Motorland Aragon, while often windy, we were greeted with quite a nice amount of sunshine across that weekend. Portimao, as rainy as it was on Thursday, Friday, the race days were absolutely gorgeous at the tail end of January on Saturday and Sunday. I think we were nudging 20 degrees Celsius in January, which for British people like myself and the Alpha Live crew is absolutely unheard of, uncharted and much welcome territory. Unfortunately, we have the Largo del Granollers to deal with this weekend. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya looking very much puddled up at the moment. A few lakes forming on the circuit, although it doesn't look like the rain is falling quite as hard around the track as it was a few minutes ago, which gives me cautious optimism that this won't be too long of a delay. So then, the race under red flags. If you are joining us for the first time on the stream, the race for the Formula One Series, race 1 of the weekend, currently under red flag conditions. This is because, we assume at least, that this is because of the rain. There has not been any active incident. The race began under safety car. We're expecting at least 2 laps under safety car. And with just on 4¼ minutes completed, the red flag was thrown as the rain got heavier out on circuit. The rain does appear to be quelling at least a little bit at the moment now, which hopefully means we're going to have a return to racing action before too long. For now, the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya Seat, or Cupra, as I should say, to avoid any telling off, is currently lapping the circuit and just scoping out the conditions. There'll be a representative from race control or the stewards in the car, keeping an eye on the conditions as well. But that sign there rather tells the story. That's quite a nice dynamic graphic. That's not bad at all. But I don't think the drivers would need to be informed by the light boards that the rain is falling. They can certainly see it for themselves and feel it for themselves at the moment. You see everyone using those umbrellas for their secondary purpose, unfortunately. We'd love to be using the umbrellas, for their primary purpose, I should say. Rain is the primary reason, of course. But we'd love to be using it for the secondary purpose of keeping the sunshine away, more like a parasol. But unfortunately, we are having to shield from the rain down there in the grid. Some 36 cars taking the start. We've had record entries of 38 cars all season, 36 this weekend, and one of the biggest ones to watch is Andrés Cardenas.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones to watch is one of our title contenders, Andrés Cardenas, and I've managed to get him down here. So, Andrés, I mean, we've not had much running, but this is looking pretty good for you with people so far behind you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, of course. If it's the case to add points, obviously the track is very wet, I reckon, so yeah, it's gonna be tough, but for now, we're looking good.
And conditions are obviously pretty treacherous. We're hoping that we'll get you guys back out there soon. But how do you reset? How do you keep focused inside the car at this point?
I think about the target, of course. My target is, of course, the championship, and I want to win it. So, of course, I need to stay focused in situations like this and don't lose my mind.
And just what would it mean for you to win this championship and take it home before the summer season starts?
Of course, it's an honor, of course, to win a title in this level of motorsport. Something I've always dreamed of, and yeah, it would be great, of course.
And just finally, a more difficult weekend for yourself and your title rival Griffin in Aragon. So coming into this weekend, is this a track that you think is going to suit you? Are you going to be able to kind of claw it back a little bit? Obviously, it's not too much of a deficit, only 5 points, but do we feel confident on this track?
Yeah, of course, it's a track that I've had a lot of experience in. And in Motorland, I mean, we had pace, but some circumstances, of course, crashes, different things. But feeling confident about this track, show okay pace, and yeah, we need to work on it.
We're just kind of, seeing as we've got some time, we just kind of want to talk a little bit about the track itself. So it's a lot of long right-handers on this track. That's going to be tomorrow in the dry, potentially quite punishing on the left tyres. So how do you, as a young driver, you learn how to do that tyre management and kind of keep them intact so you've got something at the end of the race?
Yeah, of course, it's very tough. Like as you said, in the front left, this track generates a lot of graining, like overall wear on all the tires because it's such a high lateral it's high energy track. From the get-go, I mean, we work on the simulator, this type of things, and yeah, it's very important to work on this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that insight. Thank you very much for speaking to us and filling our red flag with some interest. We wish you the best of luck this weekend, and thank you for speaking to us. There's one of our title contenders, Andres Cardenas. We're going to head back up to Adam.
Thank you very much, Izzy. Andres Cardenas then has some work to do from P7. However, he will be in the points, hopefully, when this race resumes. I like the fact that we're getting waving. Hello to everyone in the grandstand. Wave if you can hear us. Everyone sees the big screen, the podium screen that serves as the backdrop to our ceremonies, is actually broadcasting our live pictures to the grandstand as well during the races, which means that everyone can see exactly when they're on television. So we're going to get a lot of this across the weekend. Hello, guys. Hope you're having fun out there. They've got something of a shelter over their heads, which is more than can be said for some around the circuit. Some of the marshal posts have a nice little seating area around, a covered seating area, but I think some of the marshals are rather unfortunately stuck there in their several layers of waterproofs. Akshay Bora, meanwhile, from 4th position. We heard a little bit about Akshay earlier on from Izzy, that he's had a very consistent year, and consistent is absolutely the word for him. Currently in the championship points, he sits in 9th. Unfortunately, consistent for most of the season, but then had a bit of a rough run of it in Aragon, as Izzy alluded to. Maciej Gedlich, of course, also had what one would describe as a rough Saturday at the Formula Wind Series race in Aragon. Didn't get started, didn't get off the line, and was collected by Carrie Schreiner, who in turn tagged James Ernesto Rivera, as a matter of fact. So it was a 3-car incident there. Thankfully, all drivers were okay. Of course, Carrie has been racing in F1 Academy this weekend, so she's all good after that collision. And Maciej's team, the MP Motorsport squad, put in a mighty shift. I think something in the region of 2 to 3 a.m. was when finally the mechanics were able to leave at the conclusion of the day. Sunday morning, 2, 3 a.m., when they had to be back out and on the circuit probably something like 4 or 5 hours later in the garages. That was certainly not a particularly positive schedule for them, but they succeeded in what quite a few people in the paddock thought wouldn't be possible, and that was repairing the car that had heavy rear end damage after race 1 in Aragon. And Maciej somewhat repaid them with a rookie class win in the 3rd and final race of the weekend. Was very impressed by Maciej's ability to almost dust himself off after that one, it must be said. It was a difficult day for Maciej. We spoke to him with Izzy shortly after the incident, and you could tell that he was a bit shaken up, but he's collected himself nicely. He's been on decent pace this weekend. However, the conditions are still pretty bad, and obviously the conditions earlier on meant that the practice times were the main factor in forming the grid, and that hasn't worked out in Maciej's favour. However, I suspect that come Quali 2 tomorrow morning, we'll see a bit more of his true pace, and if and when we get this race back underway, we will hopefully get a true picture of Maciej's pace. If his previous performances are anything to go by, he'll be making up a few positions. Of course, the Formula cars aren't allowed out there on the circuit, and the same, frankly, at the moment would apply to both the GTs and the prototypes also. So one would anticipate this is going to be a fairly lengthy delay for the time being. You can see the water still pooling up and falling on the circuit. We've just got a bulletin through from race control that the session will not restart. So session will not restart is what we've just been told. So this race under red flag after just a couple of minutes of running is now confirmed not to be restarted. That is the latest that has come through just a matter of moments ago on our timing screens. Now that means that the pits are about to become very, very busy as everyone pushes themselves back into the garages. But the session will not restart. Geographically quite useful is the fact that the cars are on the pit exit end of the grid in Formula anyway in the garage plan, so they won't have to do too much work to push a lot of them. But the session will not be restarted in the Formula Winter Series. Whether the race will be rescheduled or whether we'll take results from the limited running we had, or whether the race is completely nullified, we'll have to wait and see. 2 laps were completed, near as makes no difference, under safety car, and I know that in the other categories we do have 2 laps to get half points. Whether that's the situation we'll end up with here, I don't quite know, because we didn't officially complete the second lap, I don't think, before this red flag was declared. We were on the second lap behind safety car when that happened, so we'll have to see what is worked out there. Goodness me, it's looking quite slippery there, isn't it? Judging by the gait of that MP Motorsport Marshal as he legged it towards Keanu Alazari's car. Akshay Bora getting out of the car and helping with the push, which is probably quite a wise decision as well, but everybody will be disappointed that this is the circumstance, but obviously safety is always the priority and the primary consideration. And here at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, that first Formula Winter Series race has now been put into session will not restart. I won't say declared, that was the word I was going to end that sentence with, because we don't know whether or not there will be plans afoot to have the race at another time, or whether or not we simply declare the results from the red flag, etc., etc. There are a few different possibilities, but what we can tell you is that unfortunately we're not going to get a Formula Winter Series race for the time being. I do note that a few of our GT cars have the lights on down in the garages, so whether or not we're going to now proceed on to the scheduled GT Winter Series race, I do not know. I suppose the Formula cars slightly more amenable to issues in these conditions, or slightly more prone to issues in these conditions than the GTs. GT's a little more amenable to racing in near torrential conditions. So maybe we will get some more racing with the GTs. We'll wait and see what kind of information is put forward, but for now I'm telling you all I know, and that's all I can do. There is the Cram car then, the number 37 machine. Obviously the 35 Flavio Olivieri has sometimes been knocking on the door of the top 10 this season. There is the 35 car in shot as well for Filippo Fiorentino. He would like to get some top 20s, maybe even try and score some points in that top 10 on this weekend. It's something he's yet to achieve in this season. Do admire the Cram cars. They are very well turned out machines with more than a whiff of Williams Academy colours about them to my eye. I am a proud member of the Dark Blue Race Cars Appreciation Society, Force One Vipers and Prost F1 cars, things of that nature. You see there as well, there's something on fire outside the circuit. We've had a couple of cameramen take pictures of that and show it to us. We're not sure quite what that is, that plume of smoke that you've been seeing in some of the shots. But I doubt that has any knock-on effect to our racing. It's unfortunately more down to the rainfall that we are having here in the Barcelona region on this Saturday afternoon. Preparing some clips for the Winter Series Instagram accounts earlier on, really did hit home just how different Friday was from Saturday. A complete change of temperament, climate, etc., etc. over the course of the last 24 hours. Friday was a very sunny, most picturesque day. Talking of picturesque, I must extend my thanks to our series photographer Daniel Bjergen, who very kindly lends me his spare hardware on occasion and brings me out to the track so I can try and remember some of the things I learned in A-level photography. Thank you for that, Daniel. You can see some of the less questionable results of that on my Instagram feed if you're interested. But the conditions on Saturday, a lot less like a photographer's dream. We're not getting a golden hour tonight, that much I can confirm. We are not going to get a picturesque sunset. We are hopefully going to get some more racing in due course, however. So we will again await information as and when it comes. But the next race on the schedule was scheduled to be the GT Winter Series. Have had some driver nomination updates there, incidentally, and one of the more interesting updates on that front is that when we do have a GT Win Series Race 1, we're going to have a couple of unexpected pro drivers in that race. The first two races, the first two sprints, typically in GT Win Series, will be the domain of the amateur of the two drivers, if there is such a thing. See, for example, the De Beermacher racing team, who sadly aren't with us after damaging their Ferrari in Aragon, but Francesco Lopez is the driver coach to Uwe Lauer. Lauer will do both sprint races and then share the car with Lopez in the 55-minute Enduro. On this occasion, though, Milos Pavlovic for Autosport Racing, the number 30 all-carbon fibre Lamborghini Super Trofeo Evo 2, he is actually set to race in the first race, which is quite an interesting development. As will Manuel Lauck in the Proton Huber competition Porsche 992 GT3R. So that car on its first weekend in the GT Win Series will have Manuel Lauck at the wheel for race number 1. The GT Winter Series as a whole with a huge development, a huge number of cars on the grid. So then the GT Winter Series will, in theory, be our next on-track action, provisionally speaking, but we are again waiting for information from race control, from organisers and so on. And we'll have updates for you as and when they arrive at our desk, but for the time being, everybody is just trying to work this out. And of course, the one thing we cannot control, the one thing we cannot work against particularly, is the weather. Until it improves, we have to make do with what we have. It doesn't look like it's falling too hard right now, the rain out on the circuit. And again, I feel like I'm hearing a selection of idling engines from across the circuit. My commentary box, incidentally, if you're interested in this kind of thing, is in that main grandstand, which is geographically challenging, for that means I'm away from the paddock, but it does mean I have a very good view of what's going on in some of the garages. So then, I understand that back in Formula Win Series world, Izzy Browning has bumped into Adam Hideg, so let's go down to the young Yenza Motorsport driver.
I have indeed. I've got Adam Hideg, our pole sitter from that race, the race that wasn't really a race in the end. So Adam, how was it out there?
Yeah, we just did 2 laps behind the safety car. It was, for me, it was quite okay because only the safety car was in front of me, so I could be in clean visibility. But behind me, I think it was quite tough, quite similar to the qualifying. Also, when I was driving there, it was just not a lot to see. So yeah, it was, I don't know, from my side, it was quite okay. I was leading the pack. But yeah, for the others, for sure, it was not easy. But yeah, now I'm waiting for the results because I think we crossed the line twice, so I think it has to be half points. And yeah, I'm waiting and let's see.
And obviously we've not had much of a race today, but can it give you some sort of learning for tomorrow when you get back out there?
Yeah, today was not a lot of driving. I think 1 lap in the quali, 2 laps now, and behind the safety cars. So yeah, but yeah, yesterday the speed was quite good in dry conditions, so we actually made the fastest time, but even there was a small mistake in my lap. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward for tomorrow. I think we have a good speed, and then let's go for it.
And it seems like you've come on in the last couple of weeks because you had a decent weekend in Aragon as well. So do you feel like you've taken some confidence into this weekend, having done well in Aragon?
Yeah, indeed. So first 2 weekends was not easy. First weekends in Formulas. Then in Aragon was a lot better. We were struggling a bit in the quali. We did some mistake. But then the races were very good, so we could move up a lot of places. We scored our first points, first rookie podiums, and now, yeah, here we were immediately a lot better. And yeah, the free practices were quite nice, and now looking forward for the races.
All right, well, we'll hope we get you out on track tomorrow then.
Yeah, hopefully.
Perfect, thank you. Best of luck for tomorrow, and thank you for speaking to us. As our pole sitter from that race, Adam Hideg, he'll be hoping to get out on track tomorrow and get some good results like he just said there. So we'll head back up to Adam and see if we can bump into anyone else.
Thank you very much, Izzy. Just coming up on some positive news in the last few moments. We are expecting the pit lane to open, the pit exit to open at 15:30 local time, in other words, about 11 minutes, at which point the GT Win Series cars will head out onto the circuit. So we have been hearing the timbre of GT racing engines from across the way, and sure enough, we will indeed have a GT Win Series race starting under the safety car for at least 2 laps, as is protocol in these kind of conditions. So we are going to see the GT Winter Series drivers rolling out there within the next few minutes. The grid for that race is certainly a very compelling one. 2 Mercedes AMGs set to start from the front. 2 very different drivers though. The young charger J-Mo Hartling, who is on the verge of securing a GT Win Series title along with his cohort and co-driver Kenneth Hyatt. He starts from second on the grid. The pole sitter for this one is Piotr Rivera, the Goodspeed Racing team, making their second appearance of the year after previously joining us in Portimao. He's joined by the pro driver Dan Arrow. Again, the qualifyings today have been more than a little contrived and tricky, given the conditions we've had all day long. And that does mean we have some rather interesting grids of Finn Wiebelhaus and Manuel Laut from row 2 of the grid. Under normal circumstances and dry conditions, we know that Finn and Manuel would be quicker than Piotr, not by too much, but certainly would normally be a little bit quicker by the way of the form book. But Piotr Rivera seems like a very handy wet driver. The wet conditions, we'll be watching on that one with great interest. Christian Hook as well from row 3 of the grid. He could be one to watch in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari 296 GT3. Last weekend in Aragon, the number 115 crew actually competed with a Porsche 991.2, the previous generation Porsche GT3 car. The Ferrari was just 2 or 3 days removed from a test for another series, so as a result of that they decided not to drag it out to Aragon, but rather to deploy the older Porsche, and it went well by all indications. Some good podium results in their weekend. A deluxe field of cars though for this weekend in the GT Win Series, over 30 joining us for our biggest grid of the year. Traditionally, Barcelona often is our largest grid of the season. A lot of drivers keen to get their eye in at the Circuit de Barcelona. Catalunya, of course, that F1 factor that's often mythologized. It is a real thing. The drivers want to race in F1 at F1 circuits. As we say, pit exit set to open at 1/2 the hour. And we then expect at least 2 laps behind the safety car. Now, whether the race actually starts behind the safety car from pit exit at 1/2, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if we'll actually see them line up for a formalised grid. So we might well get the race started at 1/2 of the exit pit lane. But the information I've been given thus far isn't all the way clear on that. So regarding the championship situation, the GT Winter Series points table is more complex, to put it gently, than the one we see in FWS. But I can talk about that again in a little while, because for now, we can welcome back, for the first time since Valencia, Mikael Kapfinger. He's down with Izzy Browning.
Yes, I'm back, and I've managed to bump into another driver. We've got Michael Kapfinger with us. Michael, I mean, it's looking pretty wet out there. You obviously haven't been out to race yet, so how are we feeling ahead of the race?
Yeah, it's really raining. You need to be very careful with the curbs and everything. And now we're starting from P9, not the place to start, but we wanted to start in the first or second row. The qualifying was not so good for us. We struggled a little bit with the tires because we didn't get them to temperature. And yeah, let's see, maybe we can turn it around in the race and yeah, maybe end the race on the podium.
Well, there's maybe you're not starting on the front row, but there's places to be made up, isn't there?
Yeah, that's for sure. I have some cup cars, I think one cup car in front of me. And yeah, in the first 2-3 laps I need to warm up the tires because we don't heat the tires. But then, yeah, let's see what we can achieve, and we just can do our best, and yeah, let's see.
And in terms of this track, is this a track that you're like particularly comfortable at? Obviously, doesn't look particularly comfortable conditions out there, but are you comfortable to drive and ready to go?
Yeah, for sure. The car feels good. Only the tires needs to be in the window we wanted it to be, and yeah, let's keep pushing.
Perfect. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Let's just quickly look at this car because it is a very, very nice livery. If we just quickly have a little look, and then we will head back up to Adam.
Gorgeous livery on the Team U Sportwagen Technic car. That was apparently Mikael Kapfinger. I'm surprised he's not already in the car. He likes to be ready to go. I thought there was Johannes, to be honest. I thought it might have been the other twin. But no, that did sound as if he was getting ready to get in the car, didn't it? But not in his full race regalia just yet. And the pit lane does open in 5 minutes. So we do need to get everyone suited, booted and ready to go for sure. And that number 1 car is set to start quite a way down the order, actually, in 9th position. He was talking there about the cup cars. The cup cars will be quite the factor in this race. We've seen it already a few times this year. While the cup cars are, of course, on paper a little bit slower than the GT3s, in these wet conditions, the things that actually make the GT3s quicker, the increased aero, well, that's not as much of a factor because it's too wet to go through the corners at full speed. The stiffer chassis, stiffer suspension, neither of which particularly help in the wet conditions. You want a more forgiving car, a slightly softer car. Wider track tyres, definitely not useful in the wet conditions. If anything, the bigger the contact patch, the more chance of aquaplaning. That does mean that Porsche 992 Cup cars in particular are very, very quick in the wet conditions versus GT3s. So you look down the grid, the likes of Leandro Martin starting in 6th place, and you do have to really keep that name in mind and think that is going to be a driver that can challenge for results in this one. So he will be starting from P6 on the grid in the Racar Motorsport car. Incidentally, that team, Racar Motorsports, they are important, very important, underlined twice in red, in regards to the overall championship, because they're the only team that can mathematically keep the title race going into our second run of the weekend on Sunday morning. The gap is something in the region of 27 points between JMO Hartling, Kenneth Heyer in the lead, and Martins and Dieter Sveps in second. 104.29 points in the books for SR Motorsports leading duo, 77.76 for Racar Motorsports, Martins and Sveps. So it works out that just about still in the title hunt is Martins and Sveps. However, they would need to very much quite significantly outscore Hartling and Haier to have any hope of keeping the championship going. Per my understanding, as long as Hartling and Haier put anything like a point on the board, they've won the championship, because there will only be something in the region of 18 points left to score, about 18 to 19 points left to score coming out of the Saturday going into Sunday. So they need to really drop the ball in this first race to have any chance of losing the championship from here. The championship win is very much on the horizon for Hartling and Haier. Kenneth Haier, who is a vastly experienced driver, well into his 40s at this point, he'll thank me for saying, but he has in recent years really directed his energies and his focus on developing cars for Mercedes-AMG, be it the GT3 cars, the GT4s, and of course the GT2s, and developing driving talent. And that's exactly what we've seen him do with Jamo Hartling, to the point where Hartling has most of this season been the quicker of the two. And to be honest, Kenneth is not the most self-centered man in the world by any means. I think he kind of holds his hands up and says, yeah, Jamo's quicker now, you know, and that's fine by me. That's always been what I've wanted to see from the boy. And yeah, that is great to see. We just had perhaps the most redundant timing message of the day: wet race, just to make sure our GT teams know that. But you know, it's always worth making sure you've actually bolted the wets onto the car. I have seen it happen before where someone has forgotten to do that little micro task. The cars are being wheeled out then onto the apron of the pit lane, and they will be heading out onto the circuit. It does look like they're going to grid in order to do a sighting lap and then start the race under safety car. So there will be a grid to look at for this one. Cars now heading out onto the circuit then. The GT Winter Series grid composed of GT3 cars and single-make machinery from the likes of the Ferrari Challenge, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and of course the Porsche Carrera Cup family of championships. Quite the unique melting pot of machinery on this grid. We're also joined by a GT2 car for the first and what will be only time this season. The Razoon Racing Squad have brought out their GT2 car. That is the KTM Crossbow GT2. That car is a lot faster in the straights than a GT3. However, it does lose out in the corners under normal circumstances. However, in this wet weather, that might not be as big of a factor. What will be a big factor, though, for starting driver Thomas Anderson is the fact that he starts all the way down outside the top 20. So the KTM's potential effect on the race is limited. A few drivers that are further down the order than I would have envisioned. One of them is Almery Bonduel, who will start from 17th on the grid. Bonduel in the BDR competition car, a second car entered by BDR competition by Grupa Prom, joining the pre-existing driver who we've seen last time out, Alfredo Hernandez. We saw him previously at Jerez, of course. Also at Portimao. Thumbs up being given there from back of shot. There is the KTM Crossbow GT2 car then, the very unique canopied car. The driver, if they want to get out, effectively has to push the roof and the windscreen up. Kind of clamshell cover, as opposed to a traditional roof, or indeed a traditional door. Truly spectacular machine, as are those wonderful Mercedes-AMG GT3s that just rolled past shot as well. A few drivers taking a couple of sighting laps there. One driver that we should watch for from the very back of the grid, 30th on the grid, Milos Pavlovic. That's one of the 2 pro drivers that I said I was surprised to see on the amended Race 1 starter list. Now, my theory, how much water it holds, I'm not too sure of. My theory is that a few of the amateur drivers have backed out. A few of the less experienced drivers have backed out of this, pointed at their driver coach and said, you know what, I think I'm feeling generous. They can do Race 1. I think that's been the case for a few. You see there that we do have an additional Ferrari 296 GT3 out there. That is the Rosso Corsa machine that's just heading out onto the circuit there. That's a 74 car of Stefano Marazzi. Great to have Rosso Corsa Racing joining us. And Rosso Corsa with their first appearance in GT Wind Series. And great to see the 296 being more widely adopted. We're talking about this actually in the media centre a couple of days ago. We may well have seen the last appearance of a Ferrari 488 GT3 car in the GT Winter Series. I don't know how many GT3 cars we're going to get, or 488 GT3s we're going to get next year, if any. Of course, it has now been superseded going into its 2nd year. The Orica-built Ferrari 296 has taken that spot in the marketplace. However, that all remains to be seen. I know that De Beermacher Racing have bought a 296 GT3 car to replace the 488 we've seen over the course of this year's GT Winter Series. So we'll see what happens on that front. While the cars are still heading towards the grid, though, I'm delighted to say that Andy McEwen has, by car or by foot, by hook or by crook, come over to join me in the commentary box. How are you, sir?
You, Adam, yeah, fantastic to be up here. Thought I'd take a break from sitting in the warm, watching everyone else get wet over by the podium, to come and sit in the warm, watching everyone get wet over here in the commentary box instead. But cracking view it is up here, and really, really looking forward to this race. It's so nice to see such a big grid of cars. Conditions will be a challenge, no doubt about it, but you know, we've got a much better chance of a grid of GT cars being able to handle these conditions than a grid of single-seaters or prototypes. So I'm hoping that if the weather does, as we've been told it will, and improves within the next half hour or so, by the time this race is done, track conditions might be a tad more favourable.
I do hope it does improve over the next half hour, because I'm looking at the moment out to Parc Fermé, and I must say that is the heaviest rain I've seen hitting that strip of tarmac all day long. So we can see there the 4 minutes, or the 4 lights on the light board there at the start gantry. That implies, I always say implies on this stuff because things are often liable to change, that we should be underway in the next few minutes. And as I was alluding to just before you came up, we've got an interesting grid for this one. Piotr Viera starting from pole position. Now, Piotr is firmly and self-admittedly the am of that lineup alongside Dan Arrow. He'll be starting there from pole position, though, and he's going to have his work cut out for him. I mean, Jamo Hartling is there in 2nd place, Finn Wiebelhaus is there in 3rd, and while Jörg Dreishoff was meant to be starting this race, he's subsequently handed it over to Manuel Lauck and said, I'm not going out in that condition. So that means we've got 3 3 hard chargers, I don't know if I can call Manuel young, right there behind Piotr Viera.
Yeah, muddled up grid, which is a dream for us because it means we're guaranteed a little bit of action. The trouble is, with some quick drivers further down the grid than you would normally see them, these are not the conditions to be stuck mid-pack, are they? Because it's difficult to overtake, it's difficult to see with the amount of spray that they're going to be facing. So it won't be as simple, not that it's ever simple, but it won't be as simple as it normally would be for some of those quick drivers to move through the field. So it's going to be a fascinating race. I believe we can head down into the hustle and bustle down in the pit lane. Issy, hopefully, able to chat to a few of our drivers.
Hello everyone. Boys, I'm a little bit jealous of both of you up in the commentary box right now because it has just absolutely started pelting it down. Anyway, GT Winter Series first race of the day, and I am getting a raindrop straight in my eye. One person I am going to come and talk to is Kenneth Heyer, because they might be about to win the championship. First of all, if we just pan down, he's got some makeshift rain boots on, so that's a pretty good going. I need some of those. Kenneth, I mean, this is going to be A very, very wet race, but you have the potential to take the championship in this, so how are we feeling ahead of this race?
Yeah, I hope we can start. It's heavy raining, we have some water on turn 10. Yeah, for sure we want to drive it and not win it on the board or something. Yeah, we are well prepared. It's quite a lot of water, but it's different to the Formula cars, for example. We don't swim so often. We are also with closed buttons, all the cars, a lot of aero, but I think it should be possible, but let's see if he starts or not.
And obviously different conditions in practice to today, completely different. So how have you felt in the car so far?
Yeah, with the light rain was pretty good. We can manage every time to be in 1, 2, 3 position, for example. But in heavy rain we struggle a bit. But as you said, it changed so fast the whole day. We will see. I hope he stays out of trouble and better third than getting the points and today celebrating instead of having an incident or something. Yeah, it's quite tough, I hope.
All right, thank you very much for speaking to us. We wish you best of luck for this race. Kenneth Heyer there, who JMO Hartling is in this car behind me. I don't think that anybody is going to want to speak to me, and I don't really blame them. I'm going to see if I can get myself some of those rain boots, but we have just had the 1 minute board. So we're going to go back up to you two in the dry for this race.
Thank you very much, Izzy. Yes, I think the only place dry within about a half-mile radius is probably us right now up here in the commentary box. I'm not bragging, I'm just reporting the fact. We have grid data ready to go, so let's run through the grid for this race. As we've alluded to, a little bit topsy-turvy. Piotr Rivera starting from pole position for this one. He'll be getting the fists up and trying to fight against JMO Hartling. He is perhaps on his way to a championship for he and Kenneth Heyer. Finn Wiebelhaus, he's won 5 races from 6 appearances in the GT Winter Series. Can he make it a 6th win of the year from row 2? He's alongside Manuel Lauk, Christian Hook and Leandro Martins, the first of the Cup 2 runners, making up row number 3. Row 4 of the grid, Martin Kazmarski in the 147 car. He's had some good appearances so far in the season in these kind of conditions. Hubert Darmetko starts from 8th place. Mikael Kapfinger and Luca Arnold round out the top 10. Noah Stromstead, the junior single-seater star, making his first appearance in GT Winter Series alongside Father Morton this weekend. Stefano Marazzi starting on the 6th row. We'll dash through the rest of the grid as the race begins under safety car conditions. At least 2 laps expected under SC. Sebastian Down is next alongside Kwanda Mokoena on row 7. Row 8 is the first of the Lamborghini Trofeo cars. Adrian Lewandowski alongside Joachim Bulting. Almarie Bonduel, one to watch. He starts from row 9 of the grid alongside Frank Kibitz. Row 10 of the grid will be Igor Klaya alongside Alfredo Hernandez. Row 11, Marcel Van Berlo and Caleb Bergman. Ibrahim Badawi and Thomas Anderson on row 12. Row 13, Arturo Melgar in 25th place alongside Jan Giotza. John Dillon, he's back after missing Motorland Aragon. He starts from 27th alongside Maurizio Cerasoli. Talal Shahir starts from 29th place and Milos Pavlovic starting from P30. I expect him to have a bit of an upward trajectory. Raid Saheli rounding out the 31 car order for this one. It was going to be 32. Sadly, we lost Helen Racing's Ferrari 488 GT3 car and Thor Haugen to a crash into the barriers coming out of turn 8 yesterday. Funny enough, he came up to me about 10 minutes before and said, make sure it doesn't rain. It then started to spit. He touched a wet curb. Unfortunately, my meteorology only goes so far. Hopefully, Thor's all right, and they'll be back out for some pre-season testing here in Barcelona in a few days' time. But Piotr Rivera then starting from the front. The Mercedes-AMG GT3 is the weapon of choice in a lot of the GT3 racing categories around the world. And we're seeing again that the car has a stranglehold on GT Winter Series as well. 3 of them there in the top 3. But those Porsches, that nice weight on the rear axle of a Porsche often comes up trumps in conditions just like these.
Well, actually, you read my mind. That was the very point I was about to make, because we do have front-engine cars, mid-engine cars and rear-engine cars on this grid, and they all handle very differently, even in the dry conditions. In the wet, though, it seems that you really want all of the weight over one of the axles, either the very front or the very back of the car. The mid-engine cars often struggle in these kind of conditions because the steering goes light, you don't have much traction coming out of the corner, by having the engine right over the front axle. That plants the front tyres into the ground, generates front end grip, helps the car to rotate in difficult conditions. By having it over the rear, as you do in the Porsche, steering can be a bit light, but your traction off the turn is second to none. So going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Obviously the cars have been out on track today in wet conditions, but this is now biblically wet conditions, and I think it may take more than 1 or 2 laps behind the safety car for them to really get to grips with just how little grip there is.
Yes, in an ideal world, it will be that minimum of 2 laps, but yeah, I share your pessimism. We do have one bulletin on the screen already, and that's car 147, Martin Kazmarski, lights on. Now, I've noticed this before, that Martin has a proclivity for just driving around in the dusk with the lights not on. I know the car is new to him. Hopefully he knows where the switch is and can get those lights on. Kazmarski, one of the most interesting backstories, CVs in the grid. Raced 2014 in the Dakar Rally, youngest ever driver to compete in a car in the Dakar back in 2014, took 9th overall, dabbled in rallycross, and then since then has been racing with PTT, his team for this weekend in Porsche Cup cars. Decided to go GT3 racing for the first time earlier in the year, made his first appearance in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo with us in Jerez. A very diverse background. We've already seen him win races, and given that CV, one would suggest there's a little built-in car control there as well.
You would imagine so, and I think that may come in handy over the next 25 minutes or so. I mean, we're seeing, speaking of, someone has now lost.
That's Martin.
That is unbelievable, Adam. What have you done? Car control skills will only take you so far, because the point I was about to make is it really does look a bit sketchy out there, doesn't it? There is so much standing water, even on the racing line. The rain is coming down more quickly than the very efficient tyres on these GT racing cars can clear it off the circuit, and unfortunately it doesn't matter who you are or how experienced you are, it can catch you out.
When I first met Martin Kazmarski in Jerez, he tested me on my Martin Kazmarski knowledge and was so happy that I knew all the relevant stats that he gave me a hug. I dare suggest if I see him in catering this evening, I might not get a hug. I know he watches these back. Red flag, unfortunately, has once again come up on the board. Understandably, I mean, I said it a few minutes ago, the level of rainfall visible on Parc Fermé, on the tarmac in general, is looking worse than I've seen it all day. So I'm not exactly surprised that the red flag has been called. As you said, the aquaplaning is a very real thing. A lot of these cars, even the Cup cars, still have a very wide track to them. There's a lot of contact patch to contend with, and in the wet conditions, that means that it's very liable to end up aquaplaning off into the gravel. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we jest, but if Martin Kazmarski can be caught out by these conditions, then really anyone can. You know, and he was quite a long way out of turn 4 by the looks of it when he lost control. So that really does look as if he's just aquaplaned straight off the circuit and into the gravel trap. So I think it is a little bit too wet out there, really. The fact that they're losing control at these speeds means that unleashing them fully is perhaps not the best of ideas. But back into the pit lane they will head, and hopefully, we say with everything crossed, we might be able to get the race back underway in the relatively near future. It is 3:45 local time here, so we've got a couple of hours to play with, Adam. We can afford, if we need to just try and sit this out, but you're right, I had a little glimpse at my weather forecasting a moment ago, and if anything, the rain now set to be heavier at 4 o'clock than it has been all day long. Yeah. So things changing, but not necessarily for the better. No, it's very unfortunate, but we can only do so much about it. As you said, 4 o'clock was touted all week, frankly, as the glimmer of hope point of the day, and sadly that glimmer of hope has been thrown into the annals of history. We now have a very pessimistic forecast going forward for the rest of the day. The spectacular GT Win Series grid then is pulled up, unfortunately, in the fast lane of the pits, not where we want them to be, but right now sort of where they have to be. You get a good shot there, though, of some of the various different specifications of car we have out there on the circuit. The Cup 1s, the Cup 2s, and indeed the Cup 3s and 4s. We do have a Cup 3 car out there on circuit, of course, That being the Noah Stromstead-driven machine, the Sunder Motorworks car, an older specification of Porsche, the 991.2 Cup car. So that means we have 5 classes on the grid, which, of course, when you go back and do your podium ceremonies, that means there's a lot to do at the end of a GT Winter Series race as well.
It's not a very big room behind the podium either. We struggled earlier on with the GT4 race to fit, I think it was 4 class worth of driver in there, and they're all sort of fighting their way out between each other. So, yeah, it's going to get busy down there, if indeed we get to that point. I hope we do. Yes, it's certainly going to be busy when we get down there. But it's nice as well, especially with a big grid of cars like this, Adam. It is important to give all drivers of all experience levels some motivation, something to fight for out there. There is a class kind of for everyone, whoever you may be, whatever car you are in, and it means that often the battles that we really need to focus on are those going on further down the order, and going to be fascinating as and when we do get racing started to see how perhaps some of the less experienced drivers get on, perhaps new to racing this class of car. What a baptism of fire this will be, because as we've touched upon, they're not the easiest of conditions, especially if you're not that au fait with the car.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to answer a question that I suppose some may have as to why the 992 Cup cars have their own class, the Ferrari Challenge cars have their own Cup class. There are quite a few series. I look at the likes of Belcar, for example, where they do kind of BOP them together into something of a GTC class. The reason that's not done here is several-fold, but one of the primary reasons is that part of the purpose is to get people ready, in some cases, for their summer campaigns. Therefore, it makes the most sense to be able to drive the car kind of in the spec you're going to be driving it in throughout the summer. Hopefully, they won't have to drive them in conditions like these during the summer. We can't even do it in the winter at the moment, unfortunately.
No, indeed not, but pristinely prepared cars down there in the pit lane, as we're seeing. That was the pole-sitting Goodspeed Racing team Mercedes, and they're really going to all lengths to protect Jamo Hartling's Mercedes from the elements. There is Jamo Hartling's view, and I use the word view in inverted commas. Do you know what, though? Actually, Adam, I don't think that's a terrible idea, because for a racing driver, there's a lot going through your mind at this point. You know, you're in the car, you've got yourself all hyped up, ready to go. You're sort of jumping at the opportunity to go racing. Then we stop the race, we put you in the pit lane, and you're just sort of sat there to think, and sometimes shutting off the outside world. Not necessarily the worst of ideas, but Jamo Hartling also trying to prevent any moisture getting into the car as well, because the last thing you want is misty windows.
This is a car I want to touch on very quickly, the 911 machine of Leandro Martins. You might notice that it looks alarmingly like the Villico car that we saw last weekend at Motorland Aragon. That's principally because it is the Villico car we saw last weekend at Motorland Aragon. A third Porsche 992 GT3 Cup chassis of the season for Leandro Martins. If you were watching with us in Estoril the season opening weekend, he got tagged by Adrian Lewandowski as the race got underway. Huge impact with the barriers. He was A-OK, the car was not. So they bought a second machine off of last year's champion Johannes Kapfinger, who's here this weekend in the youth entry in GT3. They bought his championship-winning car from last year's GT Winter Series, and it was going really, really well until race 1 at Aragon, where the suspension was prohibitively damaged. And rather than repairing that car, they've got themselves another one. So chassis 3 for race number 6 of the season. It's been a very difficult year for Leandro Martins and Racar Motorsport. But in spite of that, when their results have been able to stack up, they have been stacking up nicely. Leandro, along with driver coach Dieter Sveps, currently sits second in the championship. Currently the only team mathematically that can get up there and challenge Hire and Hartling, but it will take effectively a non-scoring weekend for Hire and Hartling for them to lose the championship from this point. This then is the number 1 car shared by Johannes and Mikael Kapfinger. Mikael at the wheel for this one, and great to see Sportwagen Technik back with us, a very consistent supporter of the series over the years, and the Kapfinger twins I think are going to be ones to watch. We know here in the GT Winter Series quite what they're capable of. They're going into the ADAC GT Masters for a full campaign with U Sport Wagentechnik next year. That series, incidentally, very resurgent going into the summer. I think the international GT racing scene might have to keep an eye on those two, to be honest with you.
I think you're probably right, yes. They've certainly caught our attention, haven't they, of late, and they are getting to grips with the car. They're getting useful mileage in, as you said, pre-season, and that really is invaluable. Not at the moment they're not, but hopefully as the rest of the day goes on. The 111 car then is next. That's Luca Arnold in the Schnitzlam Racing Mercedes, and that is another car arguably you would expect to pick up a few positions perhaps as and when we get the race underway. And then one of the Porsche Cup cars in line behind, that is Martin Stromstead, the Sunder Motorworks car, with the Norwegian flag livery adorning that one. These cars are all getting a good clean now, aren't they, as they're sat there in the pit lane. They will never have looked better. Hopefully, when the race gets underway, they can get to the checkered flag still looking just as pristine, Adam.
Yeah, they've re-liveried this car as well since we last saw it in Portimao, assuming it is the same chassis. It was Morten Stromstead driving alone at the Portimao round, has now been joined by son Noah, and Noah of course comes with a great level of experience in junior single-seaters. He's been out in the Middle East over the course of the last few months, driving cars there, as we see the 147 of Martin Kazmarski rather sheepishly, got there eventually, heading back into the pit lane. But just to circle back around quickly to that Cup 3 entry, Noah Stromstead will be an interesting one to watch because he's 16 years of age. Did Frecker guest appearances last year, the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, and is doing that full-time this year. But he's often shared his racing with his dad. Back when they were doing Danish F4, they were both on the grid, father and son in a Formula 4 grid, which I have to assume is, if not a one-off, a very rare occurrence. And they're still sharing their racing now, and Noah is getting the opportunity to race with his dad once again, which I know he greatly enjoys. And yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? We get a few father-son driver coaching situations. We also had that with Glenn Van Berlo, who sometimes coaches his father Marcel. Sometimes as a father you have to accept that your son is a better racing driver.
Yes, not always an easy realisation to come to, I can imagine, but you know, GT racing is the place to do that, isn't it? If you want to race with a family member in particular, it is a great place to do that. We see multiple fathers bringing their sons through into GT racing, and very often the son immediately jumps in as a silver grade driver or a gold grade driver, the father perhaps the gentleman by that point. But it's an interesting team dynamic because, I mean, you're always going to be frustrated if your teammate bins it or doesn't really perform to the very best of their capabilities, but usually you don't have to then share the drive home with them discussing exactly how they fell short of your expectations.
That's true. The pushback could be harsh. This is another father-son entered car, incidentally, the GT3 Poland Lamborghini, Andrzej and Adrian Lewandowski. Andrzej has been racing for north of a decade now, has previously won the AM Class Championship in GT Open et al, and is these days focused on Super Trofeo racing primarily. Adrian a little bit less experienced, so I think it is still dad giving the advice to an extent. How much is listened to, of course, is an entirely different question. There is Joachim Bulting's car, the number 38 machine. Joachim, who I'm always fascinated by. Has he got? Oh, that's different. No, he's got a cooling device in the car. In fact, I think he might be trying to get rid of some of the condensation in the cockpit of that. But I look back at Joachim's record coming into our first round in Estoril and said, I can't find anything that you did before the 2015 Britcar 24-hour. What else did you do before? And he went, well, that's because that was my first race. He drove a 7-litre Chevy-powered Marcos Mantis in his first ever race, and it was the Britcar 24 hours.
After that, I think any other car that he steps into is going to seem like a very, very easy proposition compared to a Marcos. And I'd imagine he probably had a little bit of inclement weather to deal with that weekend as well, being Silverstone. It is often grey and equally as often fairly damp as well around there. So, yeah, what a car to make your racing debut in there. Most people these days go for something small, low-powered front-wheel drive, and that is quite frankly the exact opposite. But you know, there is something to be said, I think, though, for challenging yourself, particularly at an early stage of your racing career, rather than taking things easy, because you will learn an awful lot in a situation like that that you can then take forward into your racing career. Now, now, Adam, we're starting to get a bit of news, I believe, on a possible restart to the race.
Yeah, it looks as though we're going to have a restart in 5 minutes behind the safety car. Now, what time did they put that bulletin out? They put that bulletin out this minute. So, yes, in about 4 and a bit minutes' time, we should get the race restarted behind safety car. Now, it's not raining as heavily. It has not ceased raining at any point since the red flag has flown. So that is... We'll follow that, so we'll see how we go once we are rolling. Hopefully we get some green flag running in. Now we do need to cover this. The 88 car of Frank Kiewicz. Last time he was joined by driver coach Kevin Morocco, a former FIA Formula 2 racer back in the days when Jonathan Palmer ran the championship. This weekend he's got someone who around the same time was racing in Formula 1 in the form of Timo Glock. Timo Glock is racing that Ferrari 488 Challenge car, I believe only in the endurance race, as is part of the course for the driver coaches. But Timo joining us, not the first XF1 driver we've had in GT Winter Series, but certainly quite the interesting name to have along.
I wonder how many times this weekend he's been asked about a certain race in Brazil that he played a fairly significant part in a number of years ago. We won't go there, but
I will.
remembered for much more than that in his Formula 1 racing career, I should stress. But yeah, certainly cemented his place in the history books, whether inadvertently or not. But yeah, going to be interesting to see how he gets on out there. This is a time where a driver coach, certainly someone of Timo's experience, is invaluable, especially if the other driver is particularly inexperienced. There's a lot more, I think, that goes into driver coaching than simply teaching them where to brake, what line to take. It's the mindset of a racing driver as well. And, you know, some of these drivers, again, the longer they sit here, the more keen they are to just get on with it and go racing. And the temptation is there when the race does resume to really go hell for leather and take big risks to try and get to the front, but that's not usually the best approach to have, particularly in conditions such as these. So I would imagine Timo's on the radio, he's been in there chatting and sort of making sure that the driver, as all the driver coaches will be, that their drivers are in the correct mindset to resume racing. It is a patience game, this, particularly when it's so easy, as we've already seen, to drop the car off the circuit.
Yes, exactly right. And of course, there's such a huge skill set to be learned there in terms as well of anticipating what the conditions are going to be lap on lap. And it's those most gifted drivers of all that can work out what the weather is doing around them and what conditions they may face going into a deep braking zone lap on lap. We have some really talented drivers on this grid. Incidentally, I will just say, I believe the first XF1 driver we ever had here in GT Win Series was Marcus Winkelhock. Now there's a driver that would have done good in these conditions, yes, based on his one appearance in F1. Timo, I'll give you the good bit of Timo's CV as well. 3 podiums in Formula 1 for Toyota across 2008 and 2009, and that's the bit we should remember him for. There is the number 62 car, the Egyptian racer Ibrahim Badawi, at the wheel of this one, the DL Racing Lamborghini Super Trofeo Evo 2. Now, he turned 18 since we last saw him, and he's also got his driving license since we last saw him. He was not a road driver until very, very recently indeed, despite blasting a Lamborghini around the circuits of Europe for the last 18 months or so of his existence. Absolutely wonderful kid, and has been very, very quick and very, very brave at Jerez with us earlier in the season. There's the KTM GT2 car, and I will take the moment to say, GT2 cars, to me, the most impressive looking GT cars of all, because even though they have less aero and not quite as wide of a track, huge wings, they just look so aggressive.
Very futuristic, aren't they? And that, for me, is what a GT racing car should be. It should be the kind of car that, you know, kids are putting posters up on their wall of, and you can imagine certainly that car is adorning a few teenagers' bedroom walls as we speak. But very difficult cars to drive, those, actually. They're designed to be quite challenging to drive, which is interesting because it sort of markets itself more towards the gentleman driver. But I guess it's, again, that steep learning curve can do them some good, and they're certainly a kind of car that you need to treat with a little bit of respect.
See also LMP3,
yes,
I would suggest as well. Quite a few people say, right, I want to be a racer at the Le Mans 24 Hours. Obviously, these small prototypes are the first step, and then, well, then they find out. The safety car is rolling, as is the field then. So the race goes back into action. We are once again seeing the clock tick down. And, well, again, we suspect we're probably going to have 1 or 2 laps under safety car before we actually go back to green flag conditions. But let's take the opportunity to reiterate the order they come out onto the grid in. It is Piotr Vera who lines up, or will be leading the train of cars behind the safety car in the Goodspeed Racing Team Mercedes. Similar Mercedes from SR Motorsport and Haupt Racing Team follow that. JMO Hartling, Finn Wiebelhaus. Manuel Lauk sits in 4th position ahead of Christian Hook in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari 296. Lakar Motorsports' Leandro Martins in 6th position, the first of the Porsche Cup machinery. Martin Kazmarski, Hubert Darmetko, Mikael Kapfinger and Luca Arnold round out your top 10 as they roll behind the safety car. Again, it does look as though the rain has let up a little bit. We'll be hoping that this one gets underway in the not too distant future. Of course, we will have to keep an eye on Martin Kazmarski because he had his dramas earlier on. In fact, I can see that Kazmarski is in the pit lane still, according to the timing screen, as is Christian Hook. So I think one may have learned his lesson and the other has decided he doesn't want to find out.
Yes, I think I spotted Christian diving into a garage, actually, as soon as the cars came into the pit lane. So I don't know whether he was fighting some sort of technical issue before that, or he's just decided, quite frankly, not worth the risk, which I really wouldn't blame him. But I will say, tentatively, that from what I'm seeing so far on this outlap, the conditions are not as bad as they were. There is visibly less standing water. It's clearly still very wet, but there is visibly less standing water, certainly on the racing line. The odd sort of river or stream of water coming across the track, but nothing that a couple of laps behind the safety car won't teach the drivers and allow them to learn which bits of the circuit to avoid. I think we might just be good to go racing here before too much longer.
I will not add to that because I always seem to jinx it. So yes, as you said. Piotr Oliveira then at the sharp end of the order. Goodspeed Racing Team back with us for the first time since Portimao in what I can tell you is a photographer's best friend, that car. I have heard many a positive noise from the photography end of our paddock about that number 14 car. The latest bulletins come up on our screen suggest that drivers should follow the safety car until the safety car lights are off, which, yes, they definitely should. But that is basically saying don't anticipate this race to resume. We'll tell you when it's going to happen. That is the plan there. Of course, we did see in the previous race in the GT4, Zach Meakin stack them up after 2 laps behind the safety car, anticipating a restart that then never came. And of course, that's a situation that race control goes, no, 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 because someone in 10th place might be thinking, well, the safety car's clearly gone. And that's when dramas occur.
Especially when visibility is at a premium, which it quite clearly is today. So, yeah, we don't want to be bunching the field up until we are ready to go. But like I said, I'm hoping it will only be a couple of minutes. We've got 21.5 minutes plus that extra lap still to go. So there is time here to get a decent little race in, and just about enough time, I think, for those drivers further down the order to think about moving forward. This is the shot I really wanted to see, because this is where we saw Martin Kazmarski going off. Or we didn't see it, but this is where he went off earlier on. Again, doesn't look all that bad. Quite a bit of gravel on the road from when Martin came back out onto the circuit, but it certainly doesn't look as challenging. Steep downhill part of the circuit. That was always a river that runs across the road from drivers left to right. That seems to be clearing quite nicely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was that that little river that forms at that section of the circuit that caught out Kazmarski, and everyone from 5th back has gained places as both Kazmarski and Hook decide discretion is the best part of valor for this one. Kwanda Mokoena is one that I'm keen to watch. He just goes through shot there at turn 9. He is starting a little way further back than he would have liked, than he would have anticipated. Of course, one of 2 drivers on the grid, mentored by Manuel Reuter, the other being Finn Wiebelhaus at the Haupt Racing Team. Safety car lights are still on, so I suspect we'll get at least one more lap out of this. That safety car, incidentally, might be the quickest car out there in these conditions, being a GTR with 4-wheel drive on it. There's a famous... I'm tempted to call it a racing Aesop's fable, in that I don't know that it actually happened. But Jamie Campbell-Walter allegedly told Jeremy Clarkson that they had to tell an Audi S4 driver to slow down during an FIA GT race because the Listers and the Vipers couldn't actually keep up under safety car conditions.
I'm prepared to believe that, actually, really, because for all of the performance you do get out of a GT racing car, they are limited, rather, in these conditions. The tyres they run are very, very good, but they can only clear so much water, and they've just got so much raw, unrestricted power, and that really is the key thing, getting that power down through and out of the corners when it's really, really wet, properly wet. That can be something of a challenge, but they're going at a reasonable pace, in fairness, the cars, and that's important. You know, it's one thing to just follow the safety car around for a few laps, long laps, wait until the conditions improve, but the quicker they go, the more water they will clear, and also the more they can really start to test out those conditions. We're not at full racing speed right now, but certainly some of those cars further back in the order are getting close to it and getting a really good idea, actually, of what things will be like, hopefully, in the next few laps.
Yes, absolutely. It's I think it's interesting. A few of the parties at the back probably aren't going much quicker than they will go under racing conditions. The safety car queue is a little bit spread out. There is the 992. We see a couple of 992 GT3s going through shot. Manuel Lauk being one of them for Proton Huber competition. That's the very impressive dark blue and orange car, the crunchy wrapper car, if you're English. And also, of course, the cap finger machine that we saw in Valencia. We had a brilliant GT3 entry list, much as we do this weekend at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo, including Nicky Thiem in the SSR Performance Lamborghini. And Mikael and Johannes Kapfinger, Finn Wiebelhaus, Juan de Mocoena all gave Nicky Thiem something to be worried about. In fact, in Finn Wiebelhaus's case, he beat him twice, which really goes to show the quality of the sharp end in this GT3 class. Finn Wiebelhaus, 17 years old, ADAC backed. There's a lot of stock behind him. He was recently picked, this week in fact, picked to represent Germany in the GT Sprint element of the FIA Motorsport Games. There are a lot of young chargers here that a lot of people have their eye on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's another valuable element of these winter series. You know, it may not be the sort of proper championship that a lot of drivers are focusing on in 2024, but there are always people watching, and you know, the profile of winter series such as these growing all the time. That means more eyes on them. Bigger teams start to get involved directly in the racing as well, and anytime you're out there as a young up-and-coming racing driver, anytime you're on circuit, even on a test day, somebody will be watching your lap times. They'll be chatting to, you know, be talking to their sources in the paddock, and you know, it is on days like this even where you could just catch the right person's eye at the right time and really, really push your racing career forward. Now, I think, Adam, perhaps more than standing water, this is now becoming the problem, really. It's the spray. There is still clearly quite a lot of water on the track, and if you are anything further back than about 5th or 6th in the queue, your visibility is limited or perhaps zero at some of the faster parts of the circuit. That is a worry.
Yes, our Alpha Live cameraman down there at Turn 1 made quite a good editorial point with the lens there, didn't he? Just zoning in on the ball of spray in the midfield. That is indeed more than likely the primary obstacle here, because yes, we talk about the cars circulating, therefore clearing the track of some of its standing water, but of course, where does it go? It goes up into the air and causes all manner of visibility issues. So that is the other consideration. Still no bulletin as to the safety car coming in, but we have our fingers firmly crossed at the moment.
We have at least run a few laps as well, Adam, which,
yes,
unlike in the Formula Winter Series race earlier on, we weren't able to do, so no points can be allocated, whereas here we've run a handful of laps as the red flag now comes out. I wonder if perhaps that was sort of the thinking. It means that this does at least officially account as a race, a points-scoring race towards the championship, whereas if they just sort of canned it after that first lap or two behind the safety car, that wouldn't have been the case. So probably quite a sensible call there from race control. It's obviously a shame. We want to see racing. The drivers want to go racing, but I suspect that was at least partly behind the decision to do what we've just seen. The rain, I think, maybe is getting a tad heavier as well, so few contributing factors. It's also getting quite dark out there now. That camera perhaps darkening things slightly down at the hairpin at turn 9, but it is certainly not getting any better out there, and we can at least now count this as a legitimate point-scoring race.
Yes, exactly. The cars are to follow the safety car to the fast lane for the time being, which again suggests to me that perhaps they're not done trying to make this work just yet, which I'm a little bit surprised by, but then also I'm not, because of course the GT Win Series in particular is arguably, along with the prototypes, our most amateur driver facing series. The GT4 has a lot of young silver drivers. The formulas, of course, are the junior single-seater competitors. But the GT Win Series, more often than not, the pocket that funds all this is in the car, and they want all the track time they can get. Of course, some others decide, actually, I don't want this particular track time, which is why Christian Hook is currently making himself a coffee. But that is a factor to consider as well. We do want to try and get as much racing, as much, or give it as much of an opportunity as we can to actually get some green flag running in this race.
And simply running around behind the safety car is wasting time. You know, that time was ticking away all the way. Okay, we could run for another 5 or 6 minutes and then decide the track's good to go, but you'll only have 6 or 7 minutes of the race left, and there's no guarantee we'll get to that point. So race control, these are the things that race control are constantly monitoring. They're not just looking for the standing water to improve or the spray to improve. They're trying to balance the need for safety with the need for, you know, giving the drivers what ultimately they paid for, which is the opportunity to go and race. So, you know, I would quite happily sit here for another half hour waiting for the track conditions to improve if it means we at least get a bit of a race in, rather than trundle around behind the safety car for half an hour.
The good news is that, incidentally, if that is what we end up doing, you're not needed across the road just yet. If things end now, there won't be a podium ceremony, just so you know.
I can stay in the warm then, is that what you're saying?
For a little bit, yeah.
Excellent news.
Carte blanche at the moment to remain roofed. There is the KTM pulling up once again then in the hands of Thomas Anderson. Of course, Resume More Than Racing, that's a team that we've seen a lot of in the GT Win Series and now the GT4 Win Series over the years. That's a team incidentally running the 77 car that, of course, we saw in the wall, unfortunately, in the GT4 race earlier on. John Dillon's car there as well in the tricolor, the most Italian, aggressively Italian of the Ferraris out there. Of course, John Dillon, I mean, this is a man that you probably have some experience of as well. Great guy to talk to, and great teammate as well there in Matt Griffin.
And those two go a long way back as well, don't they? They've worked together for, well, at least a decade, possibly longer. So, yeah, they certainly know each other well, don't they? That kind of car, that kind of livery, as pretty as it is, a commentator's nightmare, and indeed a spectator's nightmare, because depending on which side of the track you're stood on, it will look like a very different car. It's red on one side, green on the other, but yeah, certainly a striking livery on that Ferrari. But John, hugely experienced driver in all conditions. In fact, pretty handy in the wet, I seem to recall from some of the racing I've seen him do back in the UK. And he would certainly have been chomping at the bit, ready and raring to go. You can hear the rain pelting down from our pit lane camera, which is capturing these stunning up-close shots of the cars. Something actually, Adam, as commentators, we don't always get the chance to do is get down up close and personal with these things. And I really do urge anybody who comes to a racetrack, if you do have the opportunity to wander around the paddock, get up close to the cars, do so, because they're stunning bits of kit, much bigger than you ever realise when you look at them on TV, and much more intricate as well. You know, if you really start looking at some of the front bodywork, some of the little bits of aero, the grille there you can see down the side, that's all designed in a very specific way to channel the air onto that rear wing, and it is fascinating when you get the chance to really inspect a car like this. I mean, it's a feast for the eyes anyway. They look amazing, but it is a rolling science project, really. Every single detail matters.
There's Alessio Ruffini's car. He's telling me he is wrapping it eventually. The bare carbon fibre has been something I've been lobbying for to remain during, I believe, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo season that he'll be competing in. But sadly, that will soon be consigned to the annals of history. actually, funny enough, speaking of seeing the cars up close and personal, I bumped into a Fassetti Motorsport guest group earlier on who were just kind of kicking around looking for something to do. I ended up taking them on a bit of an impromptu garage tour, including the garage that Autosport Racing Lamborghini is in. And to your point, the effect and the presence of the cars for those members of public or those guests of Fassetti Motorsport really did quite clearly have a big impact on everybody. Very, very special cars, GT3 machines, Super Trofeo machines. They're always the ones that turn the most heads. Obviously, the prototypes are the ones that shout the loudest, particularly here at Barcelona with this grandstand that we are sat in at the moment, the big main grandstand. It does effectively create almost like a theatre experience, acoustics and opera would only dream of, as the cars bounce off every single surface around the area. But the GT3s, I think, obviously, among other things, the origin of GT Winter Series, this is the main category, the main event in the eyes of many is the GT Winter Series. This is the origin for Gedlich Racing's very existence. Gedlich was previously focused entirely on track days, their endless summer events, then decided to create a product to allow people to go racing in the winter months, which began at the end of 2019 going into 2020. This is the 5th season of the GT Winter Series. This is ground zero. This is where it all began.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at it now. Look how it's grown, even just during the last month or so as well, really. Yeah. More and more cars joining the grid. So inevitably, start of the season, a few drivers perhaps haven't finalised deals or their cars aren't quite ready. But back end of the season, it has been wonderfully well supported and a really efficient team as well. It's my first time meeting the Gedlich Racing team, and they are very, very efficient. They're very, very friendly people as well, and that's always important because they make them easier to work with, but also that does entice drivers to come and be a part of their show. So we hope we can bring you some more of their show in the near future. But yeah, certainly been very impressed with what I've seen so far.
Yes, speaking of the small team, they also have been working very hard to kind of bring in incremental improvements to the package as the package grows. I will tell you about what I was going to tell you in a minute, because we have a more interesting person to hear from than me. We have two, in fact, because Izzy Browning is with Noah Stromsted. So let's go to them.
Oh, aren't you sweet, Adam? Yeah, I've come down and I managed to find Noah Stromsted, who's willing to speak to us. Noah, usually a single-seater driver, now you're in a GT car, so how are you finding it so far?
It's very different, but it's fun. It's a nice experience.
And you are racing with your dad as well this weekend, so that's got to be pretty special.
Yeah, it's the first time we're in the same car, but we have driven together before, so yeah, it's nice.
First time in the same car, that'll be a pretty nice experience to get that under your belt.
Yeah, it's been good so far. So now we just see for this race and for tomorrow.
And obviously we do need to ask about this race, although there hasn't been much of a race. So how are the conditions out there when you were out there?
It's a lot of spray, a bit of aquaplaning, so it's quite tricky to drive in. But yeah, we'll see if it dries up a bit, then I think it should be possible to get some laps.
And you've had experience of both single-seaters and GT cars now. So just tell us a little bit about the difference between the spray and the difference between the conditions in single-seaters versus something like this.
Well, in single-seater, it's harder to see anything. You get very wet here. It's nice. You don't get wet. But the car is a lot heavier, so for me, it's a bit harder to feel the car, how it reacts in this weather compared to the Formulas.
Yeah, you're being kept nice and dry by that roof, aren't you?
Yeah.
More than I can say. All right, guys, that's Noah Stromsted down here. We'll go back up to you.
Well, while we were talking to Noah, we've had the latest update and bulletin through, which is that there is no restart to this race and that team members are to push their cars back to Parc Fermé under marshal supervision. What that means for the Prototype Winter Series race that is scheduled next, I am not quite certain as of yet. I am doing the time-honoured protocol, which is to check the Gedlich Racing app. That is the answer to every question that gets asked in the race control area, but there is no elaboration yet as to whether there will be a prototype Winter Series race, but we can confirm that the GT Winter Series race is concluded. And with that, with the number of laps we've done, it's half points. Ergo, J-Mo Hartling and Kenneth Heyer have done enough. They will be the 2024 GT Winter Series champions. It's the number 11 SR Motorsport team. J-Mo Hartling and Kenneth Heyer scoring half points in this race for second in the standings in GT3 class will claim the 2024 GT Winter Series, despite Racar Motorsport's Leandro Martins officially sitting fifth in the overall standings, and of course winning Cup 2. Even with a winning haul of points halved, it's still not enough to bring the championship into Sunday. So J-Mo Hartling and Kenneth Heyer, that very effective mix of experience and young talent, will be our champions.
And deservedly so. They've done a terrific job all season long, really. They've obviously had the pace, but they've had the consistency too, and it is a cliche, but consistency really is what wins championships. Even a relatively short championship such as this, there's been enough races and enough opportunities to squander points that they have not done. You know, they've managed to bank points when they can, so deserving champions. Not the way they would have liked to have done it, of course. They'd rather go out fighting and racing their way to a championship, but they did their hard work in the weeks prior to this weekend, and as a result, absolutely deserve the accolade that they will get.
And to your point, only once this season have they finished outside of the top five. They have finished every single race. So that is exactly right. It has been that consistency that has led J-Mo Hartling and Kenneth Heyer to, provisionally, as always, claim the championship in the GT Winter Series. I know that Heyer and Hartling will be delighted with that. SR Motorsport, an offshoot of Schnitzelauern Racing. They're kind of introducing that SR Motorsports moniker, I think maybe primarily to take pity on English-speaking motorsport commentators who struggle with Schnitzelauern. Yeah, they're moving forward into international racing. I believe there's a full season to come in ADAC GT Masters for the first time after dipping toes in that water towards the end of last year, and that's great momentum for them. Not the first time that the organisation has done it either, of course. Mikael Sander, along with Marcel Maršovics, back in 2021-2022 season, won the GT Winter Series in a BMW M240i. Of course, championship points in this series are scored in the classes, and back when we had the GT4s and just about everything else also on the same grid, that meant that that could happen even up against GT3 cars. But a huge congratulations to the organisation and, of course, to Kenneth Heyer and J-Mo Hartling.
When have you ever known a team to go easy on commentators? Usually if there's a way to confuse us more, they will leap at the opportunity. Identical liveries, really difficult to pronounce names, team names that have a hidden meaning within them that may or may not get you in trouble. I've seen it all, and they will go out of their way sometimes to make our lives a little bit more difficult.
There's a meaning behind Fossetti Motorsport that they will not tell me. Ooh. Which leads me to believe it might be that latter thing you said. Something that would get us in trouble. They've hinted to me, but they've never told me the meaning of Fossetti Motorsport. But that is one of the big stories as well, the fact that they came in provisionally, again, overall champions in the GT4 Win Series. So we've crowned 2 champions on a provisional basis here today. That team was effectively a piece of paper and a pipe dream in December, from what I'm told by Matt George. And here they are now, massive truck, multiple cars, ready for a full season tilt at British GT and also the GT Cup UK Championship. And yeah, it's really impressive to see that level of success so early in a team's career or team's existence. And then equally, you've got SR Motorsport, you've got Schnitzelauern, who not only have been doing this whole motorsport thing for a while, but they've been with us in the GT Win Series for a long time too. And that's how you can tell that a team has an interesting background. There's a map of a Nordschleifer in the cockpit there, you can see on the right side of the corner.
Yes, Nordschleifer-esque conditions today as well, so that car will feel very at home if nothing else, but J-Mo Hartling likely out. Oh no, he is still in the car. You can see his hand there, bottom left of screen, helping to manoeuvre the car into the correct position. Of all the jobs a racing driver has to do, actually, this is one of the trickier ones. At low speed, these cars do not want to go where you point them, especially when they're being pushed in reverse down a pit lane. But all of the cars, it's quite a bizarre sight actually out of our commentary box window, all of the cars being pushed the wrong way down the pit lane towards Parc Fermé, which is at the pit entry end of the pits, where they will be checked over, make sure that they're all legal. And that is why, one of the reasons why we always say provisional result, provisional champion. You never know what could be discovered. They go over the cars with a fine-tooth comb after the races, just to ensure that everything is above board. We want the fairest competition possible, but I'm sure that the SR Motorsport team have made sure they're sticking to the rules.
Thank you very much. You've teed me up for the point I was going to make prior to our interview with Noah Stromstead there. I was talking about incremental improvements to the GT Win Series package. One of them being that we've got the DMSB scrutineering bay with us for the first time this weekend, which means that the process of checking cars are within the parameters of legality is both more efficient, quicker and more thorough than it's ever been prior. Of course, another big improvement to the GT Winter Series and the Win Series package as a whole in recent times has been Mick Food as well. We didn't have them prior to this season, our hospitality partners for this year. And I'll tell you, across the 6 rounds, I've got a good, thorough sample of their work. Very good indeed.
I concur. I had the pasta today. Very, very nice indeed. So, yes, oh, sorry, Adam, you're looking at me with a look of shock and indignation. I'm afraid I did put an order through for delivery. Did it not make it to you?
Oh, no, I just realised I forgot lunch. I don't think I've ever forgotten lunch in my life.
So engrossed have you been in the action on track?
Genuine. I was so focused on making sure I could get here in good time to the wrong side of the circuit that I completely forgot. I was wondering why I was hungry.
Hungry for more racing, I'm sure you mean. That's what we all want.
I didn't have breakfast. I thought full lunch later on, it'll be fine. That explains a lot. Okay, well, there we are. I shouldn't be in charge of my own life. The prototype Winter Series race start has been delayed from its scheduled time. That has been confirmed on the timing screen. No surprises on that front. Of course, the schedule in general was shifted earlier on in the day. This race was meant to get started at 4:45 p.m. local time, which is not happening. So they say. There is, though, more than likely championship-winning car, provisional championship-winning car, J-Mo Hartling and Kenneth Hyers' number 11 car. But there it is, being wheeled back to Parc Fermé. I very much enjoy the fact that they've covered the car quite so thoroughly, as you said. But Andy, I think they're strategically positioning there as well, aren't they? They're making sure that the engine doesn't get flooded. But again, J-Mo and Kenneth taking it. And actually, there's a point. Loney, the name of the car. I should credit the car for the championship as well. They're one of those teams that name all of their cars.
I always enjoy listening to the backstories of teams who have certain names for their cars. And I've heard it all. They've been named after countries, people, animals. Certainly racetracks, I'm sure, have been an inspiration for the name of a team or indeed a car. And again, it's the kind of thing that you only learn sometimes from those strange conversations you have late at night with team managers or drivers, and they let you into the secrets in that way. But there the number 11 car goes, pushed back into Parc Fermé. I think a little confusion perhaps as to exactly what's going on with regards to race results and point scoring and whatnot, but I've learnt already today that in all of those such matters I defer to my far more knowledgeable colleague, and in doing so I put all of the pressure on him to make sure that the information we're getting is correct.
Yes, well, the system in general with our Winter Series championships here at Gedlich Racing is 2 laps or more of a race taking place means half points until we get above a 50% distance. Therefore, there will be half points scored in this race, and that means that even if this race was cancelled still, and we didn't score points for this race, there still wouldn't be enough races left for Schnitzelam Racing to be superseded anyway in the championship, because there'd only be 2 races left with 19-ish points left available. Again, those decimal points make it hard. Yes, regardless of whether this race scores points or not, it would be sealed for SR Motorsport. However, they will have half points for their second place finish within the GT3 category. So I understand Kenneth Heyer wasn't quite sure down in the pit lane, but I can assure him that unless the car doesn't pass checks or something like that, that is the championship winning car. He is the championship winning driver alongside JMO Hartling. And Kenneth Heyer, I mean, we've talked a lot about JMO's talent. Kenneth, 44 years of age, and has drove in Leon Supercopa Germany, GT Masters for a long time as well. Even the latter days of FIA GT before they separated off into the GT1 and GT2 championships. He's done just about everything there is to do. Now focuses a lot more on developing both cars and talent. And I think him getting a win in, as he called it himself, the latter 5th of his own racing career, I think that would mean a lot to him.
He says that, but as we've seen in GT racing in particular, you can kind of go on and on and on and on and on, can't you? We have drivers in their 70s who are buying brand new GT2 cars to go racing around Europe in. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's getting towards the end of his career. I hope not, because he's quite clearly still got a lot of talent and, more importantly, a lot of passion for the sport. He wouldn't be investing so much time, effort and money into other drivers, into the team, if he wasn't still sort of, finding some serious motivation. It takes a lot of motivation to get out of bed on a wet and cold Saturday morning here at Barcelona to go and drive a car at a very wet circuit in order to try and win a Winter Series championship. So the fact he's even here proves that he's still got quite a lot invested in this, and I suspect we're going to be seeing a lot more of him in the years to come. One of the good things about GT3 cars in particular, they are very user-friendly, so regardless really of what your experience level is, you should really be able to jump into one of these cars if you've got any sort of driving ability at all, and at least get a half-decent lap time out of them. That's one of the big appeals of GT3 racing in particular.
Absolutely, and of course, if you're unfamiliar with Kenneth Heyer's backstory, he is still signed to Mercedes-AMG as a driver, and kind of does a lot of development for them. He goes back to 2010 when they were developing the SLS GT3, the first Mercedes AMG GT3 product, and he was instrumental doing thousands of kilometers in that thing, and every subsequent car as well has had the Kenneth Heyer touch at some point in its development. He's very much considered a valuable asset to the Mercedes AMG organisation. And yeah, just brilliant to see that he is getting another accolade here alongside JMO Hartling. JMO, who incidentally made his GT3 car debut with us in Estoril at the start of the year. So his very first attempt at racing a GT3. He will be a champion in his first full season in a GT3 car. And he's about to do 2 free years, as in 2 complementary years, of GT3 racing within the German GTC Race Championship. He won a shootout back in October. There's an annual shootout with the prize being 2 free years of driving a GT3 car in that championship. So he's got quite the GT3 platform ahead of him. He doesn't come from the biggest financial background, so he's got quite the leg up there, quite the opportunity to show himself off to a lot of the teams also pair that championship with GT Masters. A lot of our teams also, of course, compete in World Challenge, GT Masters, DTM, whatever it may be. So JMO at the moment is doing a fabulous job of putting himself in the shop window.
Absolutely. And nice to hear he gets 2 years as well. I've always thought that a lot of scholarship programs, it's a 1-year program. So you throw a driver into a brand new car, a brand new championship, a brand new set of racetracks that perhaps they've not really driven much before, and then expect them to learn everything in a year. Well, you take the whole first year to learn your way around it, and then go into the second season with certainly a lot more experience. I think perhaps off the top of my head, the Porsche scholarship, one of the few that give you a 2-year program, certainly within the UK anyway, and I've always felt that that's, time and again, you see the scholarship drivers do reasonably well season 1, and then they're a championship contender the second season round, so I think that's a really sensible way to do it.
It is, definitely, and you do see the occasional driver arcing back to the F4 grid that jumps in immediately and does incredibly well. Maciej Gedlich has been doing that with us in Formula Wind Series. But a lot of them need a season. And I think even in single-seater junior racing in particular, that's lost on a lot of people now. It's like, why isn't he winning? Why isn't Antonelli immediately dominating F2? Well, it's because sometimes you need a moment to find your footing, even if you're the next prodigy of motorsport. It does happen. Lewis Hamilton's first year in Formula 3 wasn't that remarkable. And he almost lost his backing from McLaren and Mercedes in that period of time. It does happen. Speaking of Formula 4, actually, I will say, Keanu Alazari, who of course was a championship contender in F4 UAE over the winter months, he actually did some testing in LMP3 car here on Wednesday and Thursday. Actually on Wednesday, and that was with Molnar Motorsport for their shootout program, and he has won himself a seat, complimentary seat in the Prototype Cup Germany series with Molnar Motorsport. So he's basically, he said it to me, he's keeping his options open. He's focused on that single-seater ladder, but he also wants to get some prototype experience in, hypercar being the luscious Everglade that it is at the moment for drivers. Keanu, a very, very hot prospect. And yeah, that's a big. I think Molnar Motorsport will be as happy with that, even though they're giving away the seat, as Keanu himself. I believe the entry fee for people in the shootout was €5,000. They got track time at various of our events in the last few months, and now at Barcelona as well. And for €5,000 investment, Keanu has got himself a full seat in Prototype Cup Germany.
Wow, and that is, as you quite rightly said, the place to be really now. I think a lot of drivers are realising if you want to make money out of this and you want to be successful to the very highest level within single-seaters, there are probably 20 drivers in the world who are achieving that right now, and they are the 20 drivers lining up on the Formula 1 grid. But outside of that, it's an awful lot of work. You have to pump an awful lot of money into it, and you're far from guaranteed to get anything out of it. But I do think that the GT and sports car racing route, drivers are realising most definitely now that they can make a little bit of money. They can certainly get to the very top level of racing in that category an awful lot easier. So I think, yeah, hedging your bets a little bit, not a bad way to go. And a lot of single-seater drivers these days making that transition over to prototype racing with some serious success as well. It was the case for a while, really, that you went through the GT racing ranks if you want to go racing prototypes. These days, it is the single-seater drivers getting that opportunity and making the most of it.
And of course, the GT3 to World Endurance pipeline is now massively strong. I look at Darren Lung from British GT, from your neck of the woods, who's now in the World Endurance Championship, looking across the garage at Valentino Rossi. I know Darren, I've been texting him about that, saying, that must be cool. He, of course, was racing GT Winter Series last year. He was here with Schubert Motorsport, getting his eye in with a GT3 car at the start of last year. He went on to win the British GT, to win, but he went on to have a great British GT champion. Did they win the championship?
Yes, I believe they did.
They did, didn't they?
Yes.
Harper and Lund did win the championship. I had a little brain freeze there.
It was very close. There were lots who could have won it, but I think, I do seem to recall them coming out on top.
Donington Decider doing Donington Decider things. He's had an absolutely incredible 18 months in a GT3 car, made those first steps here, and is now in the World Endurance Championship with a team of the calibre of WRT. So that says it all, really. Unfortunately, I do have to say the most recent bulletin that's come up on our timing screen, and it's something that I've been told about already by my Gedlich Racing colleague Stefan Lerner, and that is that the Prototype Wind Series race is unfortunately cancelled due to the weather and track conditions, and that unfortunately means no more racing today. That is going to be the conclusion of our racing program, unfortunately. We haven't had much racing to speak of with the conditions as they are, sadly. But again, this static shot of turn one kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? It doesn't look promising or friendly out there.
very easy when you're sat on a sofa at home looking at these pictures saying, well, I'd go out in that. If I had the chance to go and race a prototype around Catalonia, I'd do it regardless of the conditions. But believe me, when you're here in person, you can see the track, you can see just how difficult it was. I think, you know, the amount of issues we've had at very low speed, even behind the safety car today, goes to show how treacherous it is. And I think this is absolutely a sensible, regrettable, but a sensible decision that's been taken by Race Control. We've got another day. The forecast, touch wood, is better for tomorrow, and we should hopefully have a dry and whisper it sunny afternoon. So I'm hoping that we'll get everything in tomorrow, and it's better just to keep everyone in one piece, all of their cars in one piece as well, so that we can put on a really good show to see the season out in style on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely right. The final day of the Wind Series season is always a really good time as well. We've all been driving around Iberia together in a convoy, and that will be, you know, a great send off on Sunday. We're expecting far better conditions. We're expecting our full quota of races, and of course we've got some brilliant entry lists as well. Season highs for the Prototype Wind Series, for the GT Winter Series. Always seem to have 35 plus cars in formulas, which is a really wonderful problem to have, and then the GT4s as strong as ever as well. So we will have a full program of fabulous racing on Sunday, but the weather has done what the weather has done. That hasn't stopped us though declaring some champions for SETI Motorsport. Mikey Porter, Jamie Day, they will have the overall championship going into Winter Series Sunday in the GT4 Winter Series, and Kenneth Heyer and Jamo Hartling will have secured the championship with the half points scored in this race in the GT Wind Series. And I understand that Izzy Browning is down there with the newest GT Wind Series champions.
I am indeed. I'm with our GT Winter Series champions, Kenneth Heyer and Jamo Hartling. We found some shelter under the podium. So, guys, champions of the GT Winter Series. I mean, possibly not the way you would have wanted to do it, but still, nonetheless, you are champions.
Yeah, it feels a bit strange after today. We did not do something for it, but at the end, yeah, I think it's half points. It's enough for us. We've been champion, I think. A little bit later we will realize it was a long winter time with a lot of races. Rocket Man is going every weekend faster and faster and faster. For me as an old guy, it's pretty amazing to see. Yeah, I think in a few hours it will have an impact on us. And at the moment it feels a bit strange because we want to race, and Jamo was prepared really well for today, so yeah.
Well, you may not have done anything today, but you have done stuff all season to be in this position. Obviously, Jamo, we saw some fantastic drives from you last weekend in Aragon. So what does it mean to take this championship?
Incredible feeling for me. It was the first championship in a GT3 car, and with Kenneth we found a very good pairing together, and yeah, I'm very happy. Today it was a little bit weird, but yeah, I'm thankful for all of this, and a really big thanks to my completely team.
And you guys as well. I mean, you get along so well. Clearly, you're a great pair together. So you must be amazing to be able to bring this home for the team with both of you.
Yeah, the Schnitzel Alm racing team itself is pretty based on. Yeah, that everybody is a team member and not just coming for a year or second. The goal from Thomas and Connie is that the people introduce themselves into the team, stay, getting friends, and be successful together. So it's quite a big difference to a lot of other teams. I do it now for more than 20 years, and it's really one of the top 3 teams I've ever driven. The people are all nice, so they have a basic stepper with Tim and Marcel, Yo-Yo, and all the guys being together for more than a decade. So that's something you want to give something back to Thomas for sure, and to the rest of the guys. So the same with him. So he's producing these kids, and Marcel was the first one. Now the second one we have Tim Neuser as well, who's preparing a lot of good things, working his ass off and driving fast. So it's a special place.
Yeah, the other teams should be worried about you guys then. So pressure's off for tomorrow. So is it just going to be a fun drive tomorrow?
No, I think we are pushing already and look forward that we win the another 2 races.
All right, well, best of luck for tomorrow. You are our champions. Go and celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, there's our GT Winter Series champions. They're going to go off and celebrate, and we're going to head back up to Adam.
Oh, a Schnitzelhaum post-party. Oh, my word. I know what those are like. I think the main party will come on Sunday evening, but they will celebrate this evening their GT Win Series title. Fassetti Motorsport will be celebrating their GT4 Win Series overall championship. Pro class still up in the air between themselves and Joel Mesh. This first day of the Win Series weekend always feels like a bit of a run-in, a prelude, if you will, before the first full day of racing on Sunday. Wall-to-wall racing to come on the Sunday broadcast. But Andy, you've had your first half day, and then about 10% of the half day, actually, in the GT Win Series and the support categories. How are you feeling?
I feel great. I mean, I feel like I've cheated a little bit today because I've rocked up at lunchtime. I've sat behind the podium and eaten some very lovely pasta, and not really had to do an awful lot of work. But that will all change tomorrow, that's for sure. As I said, hoping for a full day of racing tomorrow. The little glimpses we've seen today through practice this morning and the few laps of green flag racing we've had certainly suggests we've got some close racing to come. Definitely, big grids, but competitive grids as well. So I do think we're going to have a great day tomorrow. This rain is going to clear out, and we'll get a little bit of Spanish sunshine to see the season off.
Exactly. Well, with our cameramen thankfully given a reprieve from the wet conditions, they're all headed back to base and then back to the hotel. We are going to do much the same. Make sure you join us for a full quota of races from the Prototype Win Series, GT4 Win Series, Formula Win Series and the GT Win Series will race into the evening on Sunday night. It's going to be an exciting programme of action to bring you. Of course, no Grand Prix on Sunday evening either, so more and more reason to join us on Sunday for the final day of the Gedlich Racing Win Series. But for now, from myself, Adam Weller, from Andy McEwen alongside me, and Easy Browning, hopefully already drying off in the office. Have a great evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow, bright and early, for all the action.